Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross ideological space where we come together to talk about topics political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Thank you all for being here. To my audience, I love you, each and every single one. To my guests, I appreciate you coming through and being here. It's a pretty heady topic today. We're going to be talking about forced institutionalization of the mentally ill. What is it? What does that mean? Is it something we should support? Back in the 80s, Reagan got rid of this largely, to a large extent. Has that been a good thing for America? Is it something that we should uh turn back the clock on? I don't know. We're gonna find out. I brought all these wonderful guests together to discuss it. Um, how y'all doing, by the way? How's everyone going?
Doing great.
I'm
Good.
doing pretty good.
Beautiful, beautiful. Azzy, we can't see your pretty face yet. You gonna turn on the camera for us? Oh, well, hopefully he gets here soon. Okay, I guess we'll start then. With first time guest on my show, Rebecca right now. Yeah, tell people who you are and what are your thoughts, and we'll just kind of go around. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm a writer and a Twitter person. Um, I write romance and young adult fiction, both traditionally published and on Wattpad. You can find me pretty much on all my socials is Rebecca right now. Did you want me to read my opening statement?
Go for it.
Excellent. Okay. So the word institutionalization has two meanings the way I see it. One is kind of the platonic form, the most perfect way that the concept could play out, decoupled from real life politics, logistics, and technicalities. There's not much to argue against there. Of course, there should be facilities where people suffering poor mental health can receive care. In fact, inpatient mental health care is critical and more beds need to be made available. When I say I'm against institutionalization, I mean the way that it plays out in the real world. I mean the abuse, state violence, deprivation of freedom, and the segregation of mentally ill people from the rest of society. The transition from institutions to community mental health care has never been fully realized. So many lack the access to basic care that could prevent them becoming a victim of institutionalization today. Confining people against their will is unfortunately a necessary evil, but one that would happen much less often if the process of deinstitutionalization had actually happened properly.
Okay, we'll get into it in the opening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing thoughts, and we'll see how it goes. Azzy, you here yet? No. Great. Awesome. Stardust, what you got for us?
Yeah. So the way that I see this, I'm somebody who's had dealt with a lot of very severely mentally ill people in my life. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with people who are severely mentally ill, they don't want to, even with psychiatric intervention, they don't want to take their medication. When they do take their medication, as soon as they start feeling good again, they start wanting to not take their medication. They have a distrust in general. This is part of the illness for anybody who could give them help. And it's just a really, really hard thing to deal with. While, we want everybody to have the freedom to their own like autonomy and agency, there are unfortunately cases where you are leaving these people who are completely incapable of taking care of themselves. They're completely incapable of functioning in society, and because you can't forcefully institutionalize them, they end up being either homeless or being kind of an obstacle in other people's lives. And anybody can tell you, like, when it comes to taking care of severely mentally ill people, it is not as easy as it looks, right? Unfortunately, depending on the illness that they have, they can be very violent. They can act out. They can do things that make your life very hard and make life very hard for your neighbors. That being said, with deinstitutionalization, um, I don't know that there's a way we can put the cat back in the bag. I think that the way that we did deinstitutionalization was a horrible way of doing it. We didn't like put in any like ways of transitioning these people into a normal life. We didn't have any ways of these people going and seeking help that were outside of these institutions, and it was horrible. But with that being said, these state hospitals where a lot of this institutionalization was taking place have been shut down. And to reopen state hospitals would be a huge cost. I don't see anybody supporting that. And then supporting the institutionalization of these people would also be an additional cost that I don't see the average person in the population willing to have their taxes go towards. So well, I think it's something that shouldn't have happened. Maybe we should have worked on improving the institutions and the institutionalization in the hospitals and the care. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. We just went forward with releasing all these people, and yeah, it just had terrible effects. And I don't think there's a way we can reverse that, but maybe there's a way that we can alleviate the issue. As you know, we can't forcefully institutionalize anybody unless they are a threat to themselves or other people around them. But maybe there's a way we can incentivize people to seek out mental care, mental health care through subsidies and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get into it in the open, I'm sure. I'm sure people will have all sorts of thoughts. �㑎𝑓, are you back yet? Oh, this wonderful, gang. This will be wonderful. Thank you, �㑎𝑓, for being here. I hope you get those issues resolved. We're going to go to 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝑔𝖜 next. Go ahead.
Okay. So, say for short-term care facilities and people who actually are so mentally unwell that they break the law, which I think the law would apply to everybody the same. I think that it is not just morally bad to put these people away, but it is impossible to do so in a safe and healthy way. If you look at the Stanford prison experiments, we are shown what happens when one group of people have no power and the other group of people have a tremendous amount of power. You don't have to look far into like nursing homes to see the kinds of abuse that happens to people who actually can speak out to other people, but are just generally disregarded for the most part. But in these kinds of institutions, we've not only been shown by 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, who went undercover in the United States, and more recently, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝍍𝖔𝖜 in the UK, that abuse is rampant. It is part of human nature to abuse power when there are people that have zero power versus people that have ultimate authority over you. These are the people that we need to care about the most. They require the most care, and I think it's society's job to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're not looking the other way when it comes to how we're going to treat the people that are the most vulnerable.
Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah. To lock them away and keep them out of sight like this is nothing more than a social form of eugenics. We're just going to say that we don't want any of these people in society. We're going to completely remove them and act as though they do not exist. And I think that's terrible.
Well, thank you. We'll get into it as we go. 𝕖𝑓, I see you there. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Go ahead. What do you got for us?
So I think is there a question, or should I just go off from the
What are your
prompt of
opening
instant-
thoughts on institutionalization of the mentally ill, man?
I think that there should be a limit on the institutionalization. In fact, it should be deinstitutionalized, because we can look at other examples of things being institutionalized and then becoming profit margin focused in terms of, for instance, healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of the prison system. When you start to when it becomes privatized and institutionalized, it's not about the welfare of the individual at that point. It's just about making sure there's does this make enough money? Otherwise, we're going to pull resources from it. And then it becomes privatized, where people will just do things purposefully, like what 𝕶𝖎 was talking about. They'll just lock people up, just because, so they can get the resources and just so they can make money from it. So it shouldn't, there's a limit to it, because there's still good in the system being a part of it, but it should be more community oriented. So we need a lot more facilities on the community level.
Okay, we'll get into it in the open, I'm sure. Before we get to Doobie, $10 from 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 Agarwal to say economies of scale would suggest that having a cluster of mentally ill people at one place will be a better use of resources and more efficient in helping than having those patients spread out. So we'll see how it goes. Doobie, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead.
Well, I think that the Jordan Neely thing that happened recently is kind of a really good microcosm for what the issue is in a lot of places. His family had said that he'd been dealing with severe mental illness for years. He'd actually been mandated like mental health treatment or mental rehabilitation by a court as part of a police sentence for a previous assault. And he was able to just walk out because he decided that he didn't want to do it anymore. And as a result, he went around causing more trouble, and now he's dead. There are many, many more cases like this. There are people who've given like interviews recently after the Jordan Neely situation, talking about how they need to watch their family members waste away on the streets because they refuse to get help, because they refuse to get therapy, they refuse to do the medication. And given that these people are severely mentally ill, they're probably not in a place where they can decide or understand what's best for them, right? So I think it's true that these are some of the most vulnerable people in our society, but I think that just means that we have a much greater responsibility to them. And if there are situations where there's abuse or corruption in the mental hospitals, I think you need to deal with that. I don't think it makes sense to say, oh, well, hey, there are bad people in some of these places, so we just can't help any of these people and let them stay on the street and die. And you can point to community programs and blah, 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 but we've seen the results of that. The result is people living on the street, starving to death, freezing to death, killing people, killing themselves, as a result of what I think is misplaced. I don't know. I think this is one of those things where like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we have a lot of people who want to do the good thing, but not jailing these people or imprisoning these people, quote unquote, and they're actually just harming them.
And with that, we'll open it up. So what do we
Yeah.
think? Oh, go ahead.
I immediately would like to say I agree with Doobie on this. I think that unless you have lived with mentally ill people, severely mentally ill people, and multiple of them, to understand how hard it is to take care of them, this idea that institutionalization is such a horrible thing to do to them is ridiculous. These are people, again, if you've I have lived in a house with multiple incredibly mentally ill people, right? Paranoid, schizophrenics, whatever, right? And that when you cannot predict when they're going to have a blow up. You cannot predict when they are going to get violent. You cannot predict when their blow up is going to be violent. It could just be a blow up where they're screaming, or it could be a blow up where they're throwing things at you. So people don't understand. Yes, you want people to have autonomy, but when it's somebody who cannot function in society, who cannot bathe themselves, who cannot take care of themselves, who cannot reason properly, who has no way of conserving their money and using it in a wise manner to take care of themselves, yes, at a certain point, you do need to take their agency away from them and treat them until they are able to reason them again. And then you'd never know, because a lot of the times, again, when people are mentally ill, they start feeling better after medication, they stop taking their medication, and then you go into the same cycle again. So if you want to leave them, if you want to say, oh no, we shouldn't institutionalize anybody, I mean, sure, we can say that. We've already let the cat out of the bag and we fucked ourselves because we have a whole bunch of like a huge homeless population. But those are my thoughts.
Stardust, I think that's a really interesting rant that you just went on. If you had done that when asylums were still open, you may have very well ended up in one for being an unruly woman, or perhaps for not smiling enough. One of the big problems with putting people in these institutions is once you're in, you can't get out. And society at different points in time have had different ways of defining what is mentally ill. I think I've heard plenty of people say that Doobie's mentally ill for some of the things that he's said online. I know I've heard this.
There's a massive difference between somebody who says things that are like a little bit out there, somebody who maybe acts a bit unruly, versus somebody who is violent, somebody who has violent outbursts.
People were in these asylums for not wanting to have sex with their husband.
Yeah, and then I'm not
Yeah, but
disagreeing that that's shitty, right? And we should improve that, but that doesn't mean that we don't also look at the very real reality of people who are so severely mentally ill that they are unable to function in society and unable to function with other people.
yeah,
Well,
this
you could
is like
say the
saying we
same. You
shouldn't
could
have
say the
jails.
same.
We shouldn't have jails because sometimes an innocent person could go to prison. Like, it's ridiculous. Of course, we
No.
should still have jails. What you do there
No.
is you don't get rid of the entire institution. You deal with the corruption. You deal with the problems in the system.
Well,
Jails
that's
are
the problem,
different.
man. Yeah, that's the problem, right? And that's why I was like, that's why I brought up initially about how we're gonna, if we institutionalize this, we're gonna end up comparing this to prisons and education, where it's no longer about the people. It's just about the rest. It's not about the person who has the problem. It's about everybody else who can't deal with the person who has the problem, and they can't function
Based.
well enough to be high functioning enough. Because in my own opinion, I believe everybody is has some type of issue. You know, it's like every once in somebody's life, everybody comes into like a contact with somebody who has a mental health issue, or they themselves will have a mental health issue. That doesn't mean they get institutionalized. You know, even in the
Yeah, but
classroom, even in the
again,
classroom,
Nobody's
you have to deal
suggesting that.
with. Even if the
there's a
class, I'm
huge
sure
difference
you're
between
not. I'm
somebody
sure you're
who's
not. I'm
violent.
sure you're not.
There's
But
there's a huge difference between somebody
according
who's
to
mentally
hold on,
ill and functional in
hold on. Let
society
me let my
versus somebody
plane. Let me
who's
let my
violent.
plane. I understand, but there's a lot of people who are violent. That doesn't mean they need to be institutionalized.
Yes, it does. If they can't function in society, yes, it does. If they're violent towards their own children, yes, it does.
What about people that make a mistake? Once you are in these institutions, it is nearly impossible to get out. Once you've been
I'm
branded
not
as
talking
mentally
about people who make
unstable,
mistakes.
and
With this
hang on,
reasoning,
but
we may
that's not how it
as well
works.
not have laws, guys, because somebody in power is going to abuse these laws and do something bad with
No,
them.
We're
if
not
you
even
break
talking about
a law
corruption. We're
and you go
talking
to jail,
about
you get out. You don't
yeah.
get out of these asylums. Acting sane or doing things that a normal sane person would do is seen as acting
That's
sane,
why we need
and it works against you.
that's why we need to we need to like reform we needed to reform these institutions rather than completely disbanding them altogether, because now
Yeah, but you can't
know,
just medicate narcissism and violent behavior away. That stuff doesn't go
you
away.
can medicate
But you can
I mean, you
sometimes.
can,
No, you
but
can't.
at
No,
what
you
cost?
cannot.
Hey,
You
I want to.
absolutely
Hey,
can.
hey, hey,
No, you
hey,
cannot.
hey,
It's just
hey,
no.
hey,
It just inhibits. It just
you can
inhibits
medicate
the
things.
stop,
behavior.
or I
No,
will
no, no.
stop
Mental
you.
illness.
We can't all go at the same time. No one can hear you. I want to give space to Rebecca a little bit. She has something to say, and then we'll go back to I guess *𝕵𝖎 really wants in, so that's what we'll do.
How can
I
you
was going to
tell?
say,
Is his
Drazi
tongue?
is completely right, because there actually have been experiments where people have put themselves in the position to be put into institutions, and these are totally sane people. They say the right things to get in, and they cannot get out. Like, this has been done. There was the 𝕻𝖎 experiment was one. I've read a couple of books on these, and it's actually like really, really scary. People get into them to see what they're like, and they literally cannot get out. And I just want to say that I think it's really funny that 𝕵𝖎 brought up prisons, because that actually is a reason to like abolish prisons. the fact that innocent people
God,
do
so
end
you're
up
just
in prisons,
retarded.
like
Okay.
that is actually like a good.
You mean reform
point there.
prisons? You mean reform prisons?
Yeah, we should have no prisons ever, no jails, and murderers, rapists on
That's
the
an
street all the
argument.
time.
You
Yeah,
say that like
you're an
it's an
idiot if you
argument.
think
That's an
that.
argument.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you're an
just
that's
idiot
an
if
argument for
I
another
didn't say that
time.
was my opinion. I said that's an
Okay,
argument. People
we-
make
Well, it's
that
an argument
case.
that stupid people have.
We
Like,
can
I don't
have
think
that
any of you are
argument.
stupid.
We can
We
have
don't
that
gotta
argument
have
at
it.
some point, but that argument's not
relax,
today.
𝕵𝖎, or we're gonna have to
I'm
lock
very
you up.
relaxed. Look, okay, I think what you guys are doing is not kind of. I think you're definitely minimizing what we're actually talking about when we say like severely mentally ill. We're not talking about someone who gets mad now and then, or someone who's neurotic or gets anxious. We're talking about somebody who thinks that the walls are screaming at them, or thinks that their loved ones are demons and trying to rip their skin off. Right? These people exist, and I don't think it's fair to say, "Hey, this is just on the family and community," who in many cases are barely scraping by already. Right? It's not fair to say, "Hey, yeah, that's your family member. I know that he thinks the dogs are telling him to kill people. Fuck it, deal with it." That's not fair, right? This is a societal issue, so I think we need to deal with it as a society, and this is one way that we come together as a community and we deal with it. We put these people somewhere where they can be taken care of, medicated, and if their illness can be treated and they can get back to like being a functioning member of society, you guide them toward that path. And again, if there are issues of corruption or abuse, there are ways to deal with it. We have the the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, whatever the fuck. You can have something serious, similar to for this. Proactive people who go in and make sure that there are no cases of abuse. If family members think someone's being abused or shouldn't be in there, they can have someone go and check it out. We can have public attorneys go in there and make sure that everybody who's in there is supposed to be there, and make sure that these doctors are giving good reasons for why they're keeping these people. I think that all those issues can be dealt with.
You just offered a false dichotomy. It's either we do nothing different whatsoever.
What are you suggesting?
Now. Well, how about
community
we
healthcare?
How about we increase funding
tomorrow?
to mental health?
What does that mean?
Again, do not want.
You're just going to say reform, increase funding. What the fuck does that mean?
You're not letting me say it.
The frog is yelling over the
banana.
banana, man. It's hard to tell whose turn it is.
Well, it's Elder
want to
John's
answer?
Reform,
No.
increase
First of all-
funding, community
okay.
healthcare. Like, give specifics. What the fuck? So my uncle tomorrow starts thinking the walls are tumbling to murder people, and nobody can afford to fucking get his medication. And if we do get his medication, he doesn't want to fucking take it. What do we
you
do?
can afford. You get Medicaid, or you.
If he doesn't want to take it, which is the case in a lot of these cases.
Okay, but
A lot of
no.
these
You
cases,
moved the
they
goalpost.
refuse
man.
to
You
take
said-
it.
Wait
You
a
moved the
fucking minute.
goalpost.
No, please,
I already
listen.
told
So in a
you.
lot of
Wait a
cases,
minute.
You moved it real quick.
Mentally
You thought I didn't
ill
catch
person,
that.
They don't want to take their fucking medication. Even if
Jordan
you
Neely-
take
Okay, so
their
is it-
medication,
all right, if
Jordan
they don't
Neely
wanna
literally
Hey,
refused to
stop,
take his medication.
Stop. A question for 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙𝖘𝍍𝖔𝖜 and Elder Drazi. What happens, right? So I'll give you a personal story. This happened just last night, literally just last night. After I was done on Stardust stream, I got a phone call, and I dealt with this in my family, right? My uncle went to the emergency room. We had tried to convince him for days to go. He was suffering. He didn't want to go, but eventually we convinced him to go. He had some issues. Like, for full disclosure, my uncle is mentally ill. He has paranoid schizophrenia. He's in a bad space, right? So we finally got him there. He was there for a day. Then he had a disagreement with the doctor, a disagreement with my mother, and decided he was going to check himself out. There's nothing we could do to stop him. He just left, right? What do we do in those situations when someone who needs help but refuses to get it? Do we just let them roam the streets? Like, what is your solution here?
I'll go last.
Okay, so part of the solution to this is preventative. If we offer mental health services to people starting at the youngest ages and all the way up, not only would that decrease stigma, but for the people that already have these issues, like your uncle, we can provide the same kind of mental health treatment that we would provide in an institution by the same way people have.
He doesn't
Sure.
want it.
Sure, but
He
people in
will
those
refuse. He'll
institutions
say
make
no.
you, right? Yeah, I would say that you can send somebody to the home to enforce the same kinds of practices we would like to see.
He literally lives in the woods. He'll come to my mom's house when it's cold, but he refuses to stay there. He does not live any, like, where are we going to send him? To the woods?
Then in the beginning of this, like I said, short-term care facilities are fine by me. You get people on medication, you get them medicated, and then you set them up with a worker
then they stop
that will
taking
meet
it
with
when they
them
feel better.
regularly. That's why you set them up with a worker that will meet them regularly. If
Yeah,
there's
it
concern
doesn't
that
matter.
medication
They
isn't being
still stop
taken,
taking it
then you can,
anyways.
if there's a concern of that, you can drug test them to make sure that the drugs are in their system. And if not, you could administer the
what?
drugs.
So you hold them down and you force
Hold on,
feed
let
them
him
the drugs.
finish,
No,
man.
you can
Because there's
give-
two other
you can give
people who
them
want to
an
I just want to be
injection.
clear about what he's suggesting. Are you suggesting that we might need to force them to take the medication if they're not taking it?
Let
I'm
him finish his
suggesting the
thought,
same thing
please.
that you would suggest happens in an institution, but it happens to them in a healthy way where we're not ostracizing them from society. How are people supposed to get better when everybody around them are insane? When people are in prison for 20 years and they come out into the rest of the world, they have a very hard time adapting and adjusting. I had pretty severe mental health issues when I was younger. If I was in a building away from rest of society for that entire time, I would not have been able to adjust and been able to have a normal life.
I think this is so. First off, I think your idea is really stupid because the guy could just not show up, right? You say, oh yeah, he's out of the short-term care place now. He has a worker. He's gonna meet up with a worker. What the fuck? What if he just doesn't show up? He doesn't want
Well, it's
to.
called autonomy,
Are you
man.
gonna?
That's
Are you
where
gonna?
you
You
have-
should-
no, no,
This
no,
is
no,
the
no.
issue.
No.
This is
that's
the
a
issue.
silly. That's
This
a
is the
silly
issue.
response to a silly.
No, it is not.
Yeah,
No,
it's
it
a
is
silly
not.
response because that's the
How?
autonomy that kicks in.
They don't
People
have
can
autonomy.
Choose not to. Yes, they
So
do.
you guys are
They need
speaking
to-
as if
they need
we're
to
you guys are
not take
speaking.
medication
You guys
and
are
they do
speaking.
They're still human. Last time I checked, they're not
Okay,
vegetables.
you're
Yeah, okay,
speaking
Azzy,
as if.
here's the
Wait,
thing.
sorry,
Yes,
just
he
1 second,
chooses
please.
to not take his medication, but then
No,
he
not
then
1
gets
second.
violent.
Elder didn't even finish, so I'm not gonna.
Okay,
You
that's
can't
fine.
ask
So,
for
but
you
you
can't
guys are
ask for
speaking.
autonomy
You guys
if you're
are
not going to offer
speaking. You guys
autonomy.
are speaking as if we are
We
taking
need
the
to
agency away.
institutionalize you, Doobie.
But the reality is, we're not taking the agency away. Their mental illness is taking the agency away. Right? And what we're doing is trying to guide them toward a path where they can get it back. If that requires us to f them onto that path, because the agency has been taken, they don't know what's best for themselves. They can't do it themselves. Right? I think that's what we need to do.
Well, we're talking about Wick's example in specifically, and they went to
Wick's
the doctor,
uncle.
and
Wick's uncle
they
doesn't have
went to
autonomy
the,
like you
they
do.
went to the doctor, and well, he can't operate in the way I do. This is just a functional.
He's severely
pattern. This is a
mentally
functional issue.
ill.
But
It's not just a functional
but
issue. This
he's-
is what I mean.
he's
You're like
functional-
downplaying what's actually
he's
happening.
No, stop. He's functional enough to say yes or no, and he's been deemed functional enough to have his autonomy. If the doctor thought it was really a problem, they would have him institutionalized.
They
He walks
can't.
out.
They
We just
can't
said he walks
actually-
out, and this is what Jordan Neely did. Jordan had
Well,
court
then, so
mandated-
now you need to blame.
Jordan
So
Neely
then you now
had a
need to
court
blame the system or
mandated
the institution.
which
is what we're
institutionalization,
talking
and he
about.
walked out.
He-
He
I
didn't.
want
He didn't want to say so. He
Here's
walked
the
out.
problem. Here's the issue. Okay, I want to give 𝕵𝖎𝖎 a chance to finish, right? And then I want to go to Rebecca, and then I want to go to Azzy. But just real quick, we cannot, like, this was against the doctor's wishes. The doctor said, no, we don't want you to go out. But they could not hold him unless we, like,
Sedate him.
well,
unless
I
he
mean,
was
the
a
options
risk,
we
right?
have, right, are, because he has been violent before, right? We could call the cops and send him to prison, but we don't want to do that, right? Like, prison isn't going to be a good space for him. So I guess the question remains: someone who does not cooperate, who needs help, what do we do? So Elder 𝕉𝖎, you can finish, be brief. Then I want to go to Rebecca, then Azzy, and then Stardust and Doobie can respond. So go ahead.
I don't see any reason why the treatment that is administered in a mental health facility, an asylum, or an institution, however you want to put it, can't be done where the person is at. If the person is living in the woods, like say your uncle, I think that it would be great if we have the funding available to get them a home. You could even have a live-in worker, like some people have live-in nurses. I think in the most severe cases, this is what we have to do. We cannot allow for the most vulnerable people of ours to be in a situation which is worse than prison. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 said she would rather be a murderer than be put into one of these institutions, because at least murderers have a chance of being set free. Once you're in, you're in. So if he went to prison, this would be bad for him. But these places are bad as well. There's every kind of abuse imaginable. There's sexual abuse. There's physical abuse. There's just... There's no reason why we can't do the same things and meet them where they're at instead of locking them away from everybody.
I want to go to Rebecca. Go ahead.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I have a family member who is often in a similar situation. She's also a paranoid schizophrenic and has periods where she's not rational and ends up in hospitals for short stays. And we're very lucky that she believes her medication works. Like, she believes in being in her medication. So when she's in a good space, she will take it. But unfortunately, at a certain point, there isn't really anything you can do. You have to continue to be a supportive person when you can, and a family member, and uphold your obligations that way. And like, personally, always come back to that person, always be there for that person, and never let them down if you can avoid it. But it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, so let them die out on the fucking street.
Well, I want to get to Ozzy first, but then you guys can respond. I promise. But I want to get through them, and then you can say what you need to say. Ozzy, briefly.
I don't know
please.
if Doobie, he can control himself. I think he needs to be institutionalized. You know.
I think your
but,
positions lead
to my-
people
to
wrong.
my,
I think you guys
uh,
are actively
to
killing people right now.
to my point in the beginning, these institutions, the state should step in just to support the community mental health facilities. Just like you tend to see As the institutions get larger, it's harder to maintain, and then people start to slip through the cracks. Training isn't done properly. Inhumane things can go unchecked. Even people can make slight mistakes and give people you get just taking terms to hospital. Somebody doesn't wash their hands, and all of a sudden somebody gets an infection, and all of a sudden they're dying where they should be saved. Well, in smaller facilities, people are a lot more humane. They have a lot more etiquette. They care a lot more because number one, it's their facility, and number two, they wanted to work in this job to begin with. It's not just a financial incentive. So you tend to see in community-based centers, you get the right people for the right job, and the state should just support them to make sure they have all the tools necessary. Now, if somebody doesn't want to, if somebody is beyond functioning, all right, and they can't support themselves.
What does that mean? Hold on. What does that mean to you, beyond functioning?
As in, yeah, they say that they're all right, but they're not all right. When they go out into the society, they don't act like you said, like your uncle. I've had people in my family who's like done like they had like neurodivergency, and that would bleed into their hormones. And
this isn't neurodivergency though. This is something a bit more extreme, right?
Well, yes, it's extreme, mental illness, right? But what I'm saying, I'm not comparing my situation to yours. I'm just saying you can deal with somebody, and these things can fluctuate in a way where we can't control. So yeah, they need to go get help. So yeah, at that point, if they think they're all right, but they're not all right, yeah, they should be institutionalized, but it should be in a community center.
Okay, now Stardust and Doobie can respond to those if they'd like.
Yeah. So with this community center bullshit, I'm sorry, like more than half of the people are just not going to show up. And then if your solution is to, let's have a social worker go out and administer the medication. Have you ever dealt with a 6-foot man, over 200 pounds trying to give him his medication? It's not that easy. You're going to need like a whole team of people to administer his medication, especially, if you're going out there and you're dealing with somebody who is so violently ill, like quite literally they're violent, and they think that that you're from the government to get them, or that they think that you are part of the neighbors who are screaming at them, etc., etc. On the topic of preventative care for mental illness, it won't do shit when they develop mental illness, even if there's no stigma around mental illness, because for a lot of people who are sick, their mental illness makes them not want to take their medication. As soon as they start feeling better after taking their medication, they're like, I'm better now. I don't want to take my medication. So this is not these are not solutions to this problem that I can see having any effect long term. A lot of the times in these institutions, like people don't realize you are dealing with people who are very large. These are not frail people necessarily. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and some of them are very strong, and some of them require a team of people to handle them.
Wait, hold on, as he's having trouble. But yeah, if you guys want to respond to that, please, by all means, right?
Yeah, I think everything she said is correct, and I think that the reality that I think you guys are having trouble like confronting, in my opinion, is so you say, oh well, I don't see a reason anything that is done in an institution can't be done at home or where the person is, even if they're out in the woods. The reality is these people move.
Say that.
I think you did. You said you said they can go where they are. So if they're in the woods, they go to the woods. That's what you said.
I said provide funding to get them in a home. But
okay, but what if the person doesn't want to be in a home, which is the case with a lot of these people, which is why they're on the street wandering around. Their families don't know where the fuck they are, right? And that's reality. It's the family can't always be there. These are people who have their own lives, who are trying to make ends meet. A lot of time, barely scraping by themselves. So saying to them, hey, yeah, we know you have this uncle or this cousin or whoever has severe mental illness, who's on the streets right now, talking to the floor, shitting in corners, probably being raped, probably being assaulted, probably having shit thrown on them all the time. Yeah, well, that's your issue because that's your family member. So just be there for them. Don't let them down. That's fucking ridiculous. I think that's disgusting. The reality is, this is, like I said, a communal issue, a societal issue. We need to deal with it as a community. And I think that means we're coming together and saying, hey, these people need our help. It's not fair to tell the family to deal with it. So we need to deal with it as a community and understand that these people do not have agency in the way that you guys are thinking. These people are severely mentally ill, so they can't make decisions in the way that you can. Right. I think that maybe some of you are relating it to like your own past experience where you might have dealt with mental illness. I don't think it was, I hope it wasn't anywhere near as severe as what we're talking about right now. What Jordan Neely was dealing with, what Wick's uncle is dealing with, what some of my family members have dealt with. What we're talking about is severely mentally ill.
Yeah, and if I can just also interject here, you know, I've had like multiple people that I've dealt with very intimately that have severe mental illness, and when what Doobie is saying is absolutely correct. They do not have the same agency as you think that they do. One of the people that that I dealt with, who's very close to me, was going through basically a complete decompensation mentally, right? And um he had like bipolar disorder, but like he was just having a full-on meltdown. And it was like dealing with somebody who had dementia. He could not remember from like 10 minutes like to the next. He could not remember like the things that we had already just talked about. I would be on the phone with him for like 4 hours trying to get him to write down everything because he would not remember a single thing. And then he would go to his doctor and say all the wrong stuff. And then the next day, again, 4 hours on the phone with him, telling him to write things down, telling him like saying, "Hey, we talked about this yesterday. Do you remember? No, you don't remember. Okay, let's go over this again." You know, it truly is. You think that they have agency. Somebody like that who can't even like remember from one moment to the next. That is not the type of agency you think that they have.
There's been a lot of claims about the kinds of agency we think they have, which is kind of weird to me. I don't think me or Ozzy, and actually I'm not 100% sure where you stand, Rebecca. I thought you said in the beginning that you were for the institutionalization, but you've made a lot of arguments against it.
She said community.
No.
She said community.
Yeah, I'm more in favor of community-based
facilities.
Okay.
Mostly outpatient and some inpatient. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's weird that they're ascribing us to think that these people have ultimate agency, which no.
When you guys just said they have the autonomy to choose not to do things, what the fuck are you talking about then? If you don't mean that they can make their own decision.
I mean that they have the human dignity not to be forcibly confined and subject to violence from the state. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but they may not. There's a difference between
so it is
autonomy
what
and
we thought it
agency.
But their families
no
violence from them, so that's.
You made my life inconvenient, therefore I want you locked away forever, and I don't want to deal with you.
When you have a baby and the baby punches you in the face, you still got to deal with it.
Very different from a baby than dealing with a full-grown adult.
I'm not saying it's the same, but when you have a family member
who may be older than you, who may have access to weapons,
who may think the medication is literally poison. Like
I'm not making
or bugs that you're making them eat.
I'm not trying to saying stops by going into an institution.
Yeah,
it's just more force and less kindness.
Okay, but if the person then you need to do it.
No, because you're not. It's no longer you getting punched. It's the care. It's the person who's working the job getting punched now. Except they are now
trained to deal with this. If they're in these institutions, they should be trained. Obviously, if you're saying that they haven't been in the past, well, I'm saying in the future they should be trained. Obviously, there's needed for reform. If there's been corruption, I don't like corruption. Obviously, that would need to be addressed. Like you guys are just
those are based upon historic. That's what. No. There was a move.
I want to toss it to 𝕵𝖎𝖎. I know as he finish up, but after Azzy, I want to toss it to 𝕵𝖎𝖎. I want to, because he keeps getting interrupted, and I want to hear him get his whole argument out before we. I know we want to pounce on it, but I want to hear it, right?
Yeah, the reason why we move from institutionalization to deinstitutionalization is because of historical data that we have between the 60s and 70s. People were, it was just not right for the patients. Inpatient care was not the way it should have been. And because that's just the nature of the beast. When it gets too big, it's hard to take care of. That's why you have smaller and multiple facilities that it's better to be localized.
And properly funded. That's important because institutions were good for storehousing mentally ill people away from society so we didn't have to deal with them. But they were also expensive, and that's why they were dismantled. So
Well, nobody's suggesting
unfortunately,
that.
this stuff is
Which is
expensive.
another point I want to get into later
No,
on.
what
Nobody's
I'm saying is
suggesting.
that
You guys
any
are
amount of
attacking
care is going to be
strawmen.
expensive, and people don't like
A straw
high
man.
costs.
No, we're
So-
arguing against institutionalization.
I think since the your policies or your perspective has been the norm, or we've seen all these people on the streets killing themselves and each other.
Since when? What norm?
Attacking. Okay, this norm where that we can't take their autonomy away. We can't force them to be in these institutions. If they want to walk out, we just need to let them walk out because it's their
Wait,
autonomy.
that's not what we're arguing, though.
That is what you're arguing.
I just
It is
said that.
literally
Because,
okay. Stop, please.
Yeah,
Stop.
that's
So,
not what we're
Ozzy, you're
arguing.
not being honest, right?
No,
you
I
guys
am
have
being honest.
repeatedly
That's
said
not
you guys
what-
have repeatedly said that we can't force them to take the medication. Isn't that true?
Go ahead, 𝕵𝖎𝖎. I'll text
Should
this
we or
later
should
on.
we not force them to take medication?
Well, it seems like you're going to force them to do it in the institutions, and I'm saying go ahead and force them to do it in their own homes.
Okay.
It's really
Are you
funny.
gonna have-
So how do you
wait,
deal with the?
Hey, stop.
Are you going to dispatch a team of
Stop.
8 people to their home?
Stop. So 2 things before Elder 𝕵𝖎𝖎, and only Elder 𝕵𝖎𝖎 talks next. But people paid me money, so I'm going to read some stuff. Okay. 300 bits from Falsers to say all this. To say we shouldn't compel these people to get help is detached from reality. It is obvious that we sometimes have to compel mentally ill people to get help. It is often direct consequence of the illness. The answer is not to do away with the practice of compelling the help for the people because of the risk of getting it wrong. The answer is to mitigate the risk and frequency of getting it wrong via proper regulation and oversight. The position that 𝕵𝖎𝖎 has taken in this debate that we should not compel these people to help ultimately does more harm to more people than the admittedly problem-ridden system we have now. Ignore these people out of fear of the inefficiencies means you allow them not only to harm themselves but others. These systems some matter, and creating the inability to address mentally ill individuals would present direct consequences that far outweigh the harm done by our current system. It's such a trope in this space to see people finding outliers in extreme circumstances to try to paint a picture that mitigates the large-scale harm reduction of a given system. Some bad does not equal all bad. The real world does not operate under these childish worldviews. Falsers, next time, please make it shorter, but I love you, buddy. 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 for $5 asks you, Elder 𝕵𝖎𝖎, and I'll allow you to answer after this. Do you think an institution with trained people and needed infrastructure, but some corruption, is worse or better than your solution?
Well, I wouldn't be arguing for the solution if it was idealized. I'm saying that even if it's idealized, it will necessarily be bad. There is the nature of these institutions causes harm to the patients, and that's why it's always been that way. I keep getting told that I'm not living in reality by having this take, but the reality is that we've never gotten it right. I understand that 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 did this back in the 60s or 80s. That doesn't matter. But this just happened to the UK in 2022. We can't get this right. That's why people in nursing homes are still being abused. That's why anytime you have this massive power imbalance, people are getting abused. If you have it done...
Sure. Elder 𝕵𝖎𝖎, just to question you on that, right? Do you think that the people that are outside of these institutions that are mentally ill, that are on the streets, aren't getting abused?
I think that the kinds of abuse are different. I think that if it's out in the open, people can see it. When you have people coming in to examine the conditions of these places, who are they going to talk to? The people that have been labeled insane, or are they going to talk to the administration? The administration is the one performing the abuses. They are the only people that they can talk to figure out what's going on, if the care is good or not. If you're saying that this person is insane, they're detached from reality, well, you can't have a conversation with them about their care. You have to talk to the people that would be doing the abuse. And it just blows my mind that we keep saying, well, we'll just do it right this time. It has never been done right. It has been done so bad that the American government said, our bad, we fucked up, we're going to stop doing this whole thing. When does that happen? That's how bad it is.
When it's too expensive, too. It was too expensive, and that's also part of the reason why they did deinstitutionalization, because nobody wanted to continue spending the money.
Part of it because of the exposure.
Yes, part of that was because of the abuse, but also part of it was, you know what, it's going to be less expensive for us to just dismantle this whole thing than for us to fix the problem.
It was always less expensive to dismantle the whole thing. That didn't change.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that it's a better solution.
Did their bills triple? No, wait.
If anything, it is a better.
Hold on.
Yeah, you're not. you're doing a strong man, and if anything, it's always better for them to deinstitutionalize to a certain extent, because now they can allocate resources to getting better tools into facilities for where people who can be better trained. Well, like, what are we talking about? This is the same argument we have about
Is that what
education
happened, or do
and
we have
prisons.
like is that
Can I-
what we happened, or do we have like a has anything
That is
improved
what
for
happened.
those people?
My counter
I
to
don't
your
think
argument is
so.
factual. It's not debatable that it was always cheaper to take them down. Always. If you're not
Of course
doing
it was
something, it
always
costs.
cheaper. I
Okay,
don't
but
think
that
I'm
was you're
disagreeing
saying
with
that's
you.
why they got rid of it. That's a big
I
part of why
think
they
we
got
all
rid of it.
agree
It's
that
part of the reason, yeah.
But okay,
I think
that
we all
reason
agree
always
that it
You
was
existed.
bad
are
for them
agreeing
to
with
shut
me.
things
You
down
are
because
agreeing
it
with
was
me that it's
expensive.
factual. We both agree that it's factual. It's
But it's
also part of the
irrelevant.
reason.
But we
The
keep
price
coming
didn't
back
triple
to
the
this
year they
why
decided
I
regressive
don't
point.
see
cancel it.
institutionalization coming back is because it's too fucking expensive.
Wait, no. But you forgot about Obamacare in 2010, 2014. That made mental health insurance and in facilities like
What does
this
that have to do
more
with institutionalization?
affordable. Because now that it's more affordable, it gave more people more access to the institutions. The reason why it was terrible back then, that's why even in minority communities, we have an attitude towards mental health. It's because nobody could afford that. Ain't nobody paying for that. That's what we used to say to each other. But now that more
Yeah, but
people,
you're talking
now that
about a
more
completely
people can afford it, you see an ad
You are
every other
talking
day
about
talking
a
about go to
completely
BetterHelp.
different issue. You're
No,
talking
I'm
about a
not. I'm talking
completely
about
different issue.
we're
Yes,
talking
you
about
are.
money issues. You wanted to discuss
We're
finances. We
talking
can
about
discuss
people who are so
finances.
mentally ill that
Hold
they
on,
cannot
because
function in
you're making this
society.
vacuous point, and I'm just trying to talk about the finances.
Vacuous point. We're talking about a
Yes.
very specific instance here, right? We're talking about people who we know are not functional in society, people who we know do not
Okay,
get
so let's
along well with
break it
others.
down. Let's break it down. Number one, it was costly to the state and to the government, because now they were the ones funding it, and nobody could afford it except the rich. So now they're
Speaking of affording it, $7 from Rora Pickles to say contributing to the $20,000 you asked for. It's Canadian dollars, so it's not real money, but I appreciate you anyway. I wanna move past the. I wanna move not
I
entirely.
mean, they're gonna
off-
bring us back, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Wade.
I want to move not entirely off the funding, because I think funding matters, but I want to ask, right? If we had the political will, we can fund very expensive things. Look at the war in Iraq, right? Look at these other things that we've poured billions and trillions of dollars into, right? So if Americans had the political will to properly fund these things, I mean, don't you think they would? And if they were properly funded, would you still oppose the forced institutionalization of people? So, for example, if we could build an institution where these abuses were mitigated, would you be okay with forcibly instituting someone who does not want to be institutionalized? Or
Well,
do you
of course, if you want,
or just let me finish, or is your opposition to it one of an autonomy? Like, if they say no, it means no, and regardless of whether it would be better for them, we're still gonna hold off, right?
So then, yeah. So this. Remember when you initially asked me this in DMs, and I said that we could, and it's highly important. Institutionalization, ideally, is very important. I don't disagree with you, Doobie or Stardust, but we just don't have the attitude. Like Wick said, if we wanted it to happen, like, America just prints money out of nowhere. America's not backed by anything. We just print money because we just think we're on top. So if we really wanted to fund this, we could. The thing is, we don't want to. Like, right now, well, back then, 60s and 70s, when we wanted to, if we wanted people who needed it the most, we would have made it affordable, but we didn't. Now that it's affordable, now we have this attitude towards, well, mental health isn't real. So people, and it's this wishy-washy where we can never come to like a conclusive agreement between each other. You know, the groups of mental health or no mental health.
What about
It's
it
like,
is affordable now?
You have insurance. Your insurance pays for it now. Back then, you
It
couldn't do
pays
that. You
for
couldn't
what?
go to a therapist. You couldn't go to an institution.
Right, but
You would
this
have to
is
pay out of
completely
pocket.
different. This is completely different from again, like, somebody having an extended stay in a facility.
Well, then at that point, no, then it's the state paying for it because most people can't pay that.
There's 2 points against this that if we're talking about increasing the funding for these institutions that haven't been brought up, and I think they're really important. One is that if these institutions exist, people with if we had any kind of like metric for emergency treatment where they have to go to the facility, people seeking non-emergency treatment would be more afraid to go and get it because they'd be afraid of ending up in these, leading to more increased mental health problems throughout the general population. And the second one is if you increase the funding to have these buildings, you're going to increase the number of diagnoses. If you have a building and you need to fill up a certain amount of beds in order to keep your funding, you better believe that people are going to make sure that they're finding enough people to fill those beds in this mental health institution. That scares the fuck out of me. If that doesn't scare you, then you need to look at how government funding in medical projects works.
Well, I mean, before that, just to quickly add on, if you have multiple buildings, then we don't even need to get into the negatives because now that we have multiple buildings with multiple highly trained individuals who want to be in the job, who have proper funding, then yeah, we can institutionalize to that extent, and we would see very few inhumane occurrences that take place.
Go ahead.
Better is better, but
Doobie and Stardust, go ahead.
So I think it's So someone, I think it was Drazi earlier, said that the thing with 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 happened like around the 60s or something. That actually happened in 1886.
Okay, I'm bad with years.
Right, so sure. 136 years ago. So there have been, and back then, they were still doing hydrotherapy where they were dumping people in cold water, right, to try to treat them. They were still doing fucking bloodletting, right? They didn't understand. There have been significant advancements.
And you know what they're telling them to do now? They're telling them to take cold showers now. That's what's funny.
Undercover
they're telling them to take cold showers now.
Yeah, you guys are all rambling. Well, really quick, I wasn't done. So there have been a significant, I mean, I think you'd agree, significant advancements in mental health, psychology, psychiatry, etc. since 1887.
Which is why I brought up the one in 2022 as well.
So, i.e., one of those advancements is antipsychotic medication. Right.
Those things aren't legitimate.
So please, antipsychotic medication isn't legitimate.
What?
They just inhibit. They inhibit the parts of the brain where those chemicals would have those reactions.
Wait,
you treat it
what
both.
the treatment is. Yeah.
I brought up
Right.
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 because it was the first landmark case. We've still had modern day, last year, people going undercover and finding the same kinds of abuse are happening to this day with all the modern advancements.
Because
I'm sure you can find cases of abuse in different places, of course, right? But I think the reality is going to be that the vast majority of people
why are you calling out my example.
Well, because you keep using 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 and
I
talking
used
about
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 as the first landmark case, and I always coupled it with the 2022 one as well.
Stop talking. I understand. So I think you keep saying, oh, if somebody goes in and they're just upset, they might institutionalize you and you can't get out because this happened. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 proved this and blah blah blah. You said this repeatedly. This happened in the fucking 1800s. Like I think if we're gonna be criticizing this idea, I think you need to go just stay within the century. Is all I'm asking.
I just
right?
did. I coupled it every single time.
Okay, what was a
specific
case? What was a specific case in 2022? And was it found that this is a widespread? Okay, so at a single place. So because there was an abusive people at a single place, we're gonna get rid of the entire fucking system.
What?
Wait. You said 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙.
That's
thing
not,
doesn't apply
that's
because
how
of this.
bad
Totally
faith
bring
can
it
you
to
be?
modern day.
No,
And I said,
Drazi,
no,
don't
I
even
have
indulge
every
him.
time.
Don't even
And
indulge
you're
him.
like,
How bad?
well,
don't even
now
indulge
I'm
him.
just gonna
How
dismiss
bad?
Because I don't want to engage.
Listen.
Don't even indulge this,
Okay,
man. This is what I was
engage.
talking about. This is the
Okay, 'cause
attitude
the
that
reality
we're
is,
talking about.
okay, stop. The reality is that 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 isn't irrelevant. 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙
was so bad
you
faith.
stop.
That was so bad faith.
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 isn't irrelevant to the conversation. That's why I brought it up.
You asked me to bring it
is
into
not.
this century.
Okay.
I did,
so
and then
into
you
this
moved the goalpost
century,
immediately.
what you found isn't widespread cases of abuse at all these different institutions where people are being held against their will.
Because we've taken them down.
Stop. Where people are being held against their will, like 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙 was, and they can't. There's no one they can speak to get out, etc., etc.
You're
Like
advocating
𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙.
for holding people
What you're
against their
saying,
will.
what you're saying is, hey, there's a case.
Bad faith can you be?
What you're saying is, hey, there's a case. Please stop talking.
How bad faith can you be?
You're not contributing anything. You think anti-psych meds don't work, so I think you might fucking need some. Like
I didn't say that.
strange thing
silly.
to say.
I didn't say that,
You
silly.
did
This
say
is
that
what
they
I
don't work.
No, I didn't
said
say
don't
they
work. You
didn't
said
work.
all they do is suppress part of the
Is-
brain that makes you psychotic. So what the
That
fuck? What the
means they
fuck do you?
work.
What, how?
That
how,
means they work.
So then why would you?
That
why would
means
you
they work.
criticize them?
By essentially
would
what
you
I'm saying
criticize them?
is that they work. No, I didn't criticize them. I said they're not the
You
end all
absolutely
be all.
did.
That's
What is the end all
essentially
be
what
all?
I'm saying.
So if someone's psychotic, they have a mental disorder.
If you weren't
believe
so
them to be
bad faith,
psychotic,
you would allow somebody to finish.
Okay, so explain to me, how do you help that person without the medication, or in addition to the medication, what do you do?
Well, you're supposed to have a whole lifestyle routine and supplement with the medication. You can't just medicate the
But if they ever
stop
taking, we're not talking about narcissism. Why do you keep saying that?
Well, I'm just gonna the broad spectrum of everybody who's going to a mental health or a
People with
clinic of any
narcissism
kind.
aren't being
People with
institutionalized.
depression.
Okay, I think
people
we
with-
need
hold
to.
on,
I
this is
think
how
we need to
bad faith
reset
you
a
are.
little bit.
So
I think we need
stupid.
to
We
reset.
don't. We just
I
need
wanna
Doobie
make
to
it
relax.
clear.
Narcissism aren't being institutionalized.
Yeah,
We're not talking about people with narcissism.
Doobie, you need to
That's so
relax.
stupid.
I know you smell
Why would you even
blood,
bring that up?
but you
Okay,
need to hold
stop.
off.
Okay, stop.
You know that
everyone.
you said something really stupid and you're refusing to
Okay.
fucking engage with it.
I want to make it clear. I want to make it clear. We're not talking about ADHD or autism or things like that. We're talking about people who have severe mental illness that makes it so that they cannot function in society or are violent. And I'm trying to find where everyone is okay, what the line is where people, if there is any, where people would be okay. Well, it's like, hey, okay, we need to, even if you don't want to, even if you really, really don't want to, we're going to have to put you somewhere. Right, we're gonna have to put you in a place that you don't want to be to get.
I watched it. I know this. Yeah, I mean, I know this.
We can't make any arguments, you guys. Not enough people have gone undercover and been held against their will, and now there's antipsychotic meds, which somehow prevents these people from being abused. So Doobie said it all by not engaging with anything that I said whatsoever.
Yeah, he's bad faith. That's what I meant.
I don't think Doobie or I will disagree that medicine has improved. Medicine isn't what it used to be. Medicine, as it was practiced in the past, well, in some ways could have been abusive or could have been wrong, right? Obviously, right? This is how science works. This is how medicine works.
That's
as
not the
time goes on.
ever.
Wait a minute.
That's not the contention. That's not even what you're arguing with. You're arguing ghosts.
Retarded.
Casper's not in the room.
You are fucking retarded. You deserve
retarded because we're engaging with what you're saying.
That's not the type of mental illness we're talking about, Stardust.
Let me finish.
We're talking about bipolar disorder and violence.
I'm not finished speaking. Where was I? Okay.
Very fanatic of you.
Right. We are not disagreeing that medicine improves as there's more research done, right? That's obvious.
That was Doobie's point, not ours.
Shut the fuck up. Shut up.
Well, you keep saying we're not disagreeing, but nobody suggested that you were.
Shut the fuck up. You guys were talking about, oh, they found all these abuses and all of that, right? Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
No shit, Sherlock, because the medical industry was not what, it was different back then.
I didn't claim it was because of the medicine. I said it's because of the power imbalance. Doobie's the one who said the medicine's gotten better. None of us.
Has gotten better. But when you talk about the power imbalance, also that is part of practicing and taking care of people. And guess what?
Correct.
The way that we practice and the way that we take care of people, shut the fuck up. The way that we practice medicine and take care of people has improved dramatically over the past few decades, right? So this whole power imbalance bullshit that you're bringing, sure, there may be some power imbalance, right? But that does not always make things
total power imbalance.
Abusive. Power imbalance does not necessarily make things abusive. And the way that we practice care, the way that we take care of patients, the way that we empathize with them has improved over the decades. So Doobie and I are not, advocating for some weird, archaic version of what institutionalization used to be.
Okay, you're just saying that it's improved, but I'm saying it hasn't improved. The abuse is still there. You're just saying that it has.
To make this less rhetorical.
No, stop for a moment. I want to engage a little bit, and I want to toss it to Rebecca, but I want to ask Drosy.
You do need power imbalances in medical cares.
That is the question. Power imbalance.
So, do you not think that there is any good that comes from the power imbalance? Why should the doctors not be in power over their patients? Like, the patients aren't the ones that have the expertise. They aren't the ones that have the training. And in these cases, they are literally not in their right mind. right?
So, like I said before, it's not just that there's a power imbalance. It is absolute. If somebody comes in to investigate, they have to talk to the doctors. You can't talk to an insane person to get a view of their treatment. You're going to talk to the administration. You're going to talk to the doctors. If these people are
And the
wanting to
doctors
keep their
will
jobs
check
and they
each
want the
other.
institution to keep on functioning and running, they're going to lie to cover their asses. And there is nobody there to support the mentally ill people. This is the nature of it. This is
I
why
think
we
that's
see the same
bullshit.
kinds of abuses in the Stanford prison experience. You might think it's bullshit, but you have not offered one single piece of data to support
Again,
what you're
if
saying.
you
You're
look,
just
if
saying, you're just
if
talking about
you
your feelings. You feel like
you're
it's
telling me,
different.
if you are telling me that we go to a facility and we interview all of the nurses and all of the doctors and all the administrators, that nobody's going to snitch on each other, nobody.
If there's abuse happening in the
That's like
facility,
some
there would already be a
conspiratorial.
whistleblower, would there
That is
not? They're just
conspiratorial
waiting.
bullshit
They're
if I
just
ever heard
they're
it.
just waiting for this philanthropic investigator to come and finally. I've been waiting so long to do something about this.
They will
I couldn't
snitch
have picked
on
up
their
the phone.
colleagues. Yes, they will.
Then why isn't that happening?
It is. That's
I mean,
why they were
there is,
deinstitutionalized in the first place.
It happened. It happened because of the exposés that I was talking about.
Well, yeah, including that. People were snitching, and then when people were going in unannounced and doing investigations and finding that things were happening that were inhumane.
But in
So
some
I don't
some
understand.
cases,
I don't understand the contention on these points. And
There's a lot of
we
things I don't
understand. And this is across the board in every facet of institutionalized society. When it gets too big, things start to happen that ain't right. And when it's smaller, it's easier to control. So I don't understand why you're arguing.
So you're suggesting that we can have these institutions where the people, they're forced to be there. It's mandatory. They're forced to take medication if they don't want it. But so long as it's small, so long as there's like a limit on the number of patients that can be there, and it's kept a reasonable number, and so long as there's oversight by third parties who are like patient advocates, right? Are you suggesting that would be fine?
That and then some. Would you like to hear that and then some? I don't want.
Sure.
I don't want a monologue.
Before
Does anyone else have to? Yeah, go
Before
ahead.
he does it, then some. $5 from 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 to ask �elder there is a power imbalance between me and my school teacher. Should we abolish schools?
Is it absolute? Could she beat the shit out of you and rape you, and then if somebody comes and asks about it, they won't take your word for it?
Why
Only
do you
hers?
assume the
Then
teacher
yeah,
is
probably. Well, because I was having, I don't know.
And the majority of teachers are women.
Because I'm angry.
No,
And
it's data,
I'm
bro.
angry at
No,
Starbucks,
don't let
so I
Wick
made
get
the
you.
teacher
Don't
a
let
woman.
No, don't let Wick get you on that. The majority of teachers are women. Don't let him do that to you.
Probably because all of my favorite teachers were women.
Noted. Okay. Finish your point.
And
finish your point briefly, Azzy.
yeah, and then some is that you can reduce the dosage where the people don't feel like they're losing their autonomy or their agency based upon the medication. When I was talking about the medication,
dosage
across the board. Excuse me, let me swallow my spit. People feel like they're not themselves when they take the medication, and it's by design of the medication because it is interrupting certain chemical processes in your brain. So my solution is, hey, we give the medication in increments and smaller doses, and then give them lifestyle choices that are within a realm, so they still feel like they have their autonomy and agency.
Have you ever
and they're
dealt
still
with
being
mental ill people?
yes.
Well, then you should know that's already happening.
I worked for. I volunteered in a veteran.
That'll make them
before you
that'll
interrupt
make
me,
them
I
want
can
to
just
take
answer
the
your question
medication.
right now. I know you feel emotional right now. Just control yourself.
Okay, but Azzy, that's already what happens. Can you respond to that too?
You have agency, guys. You're fully functioning adults. You can control
so
yourselves.
they'll just want to take the medication if it's the smaller dose.
Wick, we need to get these people
Just shut
some
the
medication.
fuck up and call her retarded.
Yeah,
that's what she does.
Can I ask?
Just give them medication, bro. They can't control themselves.
Do you realize that not all, like, I understand that ideally, if we could treat these people, like, we could eventually wean them off medication in some cases, but there's a lot of mental illnesses where you cannot, that we do not. You are on medication.
I'm not anti-meds.
For life.
For the rest of
we're
your
not.
life.
Yeah, I agree with you, Stardust, but we're not anti-meds, and we're at the same time, we're not anti-agency. It's the institutionalization of mental illness is a complex issue, and it's going to require consideration of individual needs. So
Okay.
I'm proposing, and most of us have proposed, community-based institutionalization,
Then
where
how are
people
you?
can, the primary focus is mental health treatment, but you can have the appropriate support and resources where we can now, this is why people get personal trainers, where we can now idealize the treatment to the individual's needs. And
How
it's
are you
that's
going to
what
do
is
that?
a
what do you think our
one-to-one.
position
When
is?
you
Let
have
me
a
let me
big
ask you a
institution,
question.
it becomes
Can I
harder
ask
to
you a
do
question?
that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
How
Just allow me to
are you
finish.
going to dispatch a team of 6 people to go to somebody's house to make them take medication?
Yeah, that's
And
called
how
home
are
health.
you
It
how
already
how are you
exists.
going to do that? And how are you
That
going to
process
make
already
how are
exists,
you
Stardust.
how are you
It already
6
exists.
people to dispatch 6
Yes.
people? No,
Yes,
they
three
don't.
three
They
one
send
one
like
911.
1 social worker.
When that
When the
system
police
already
involve me,
exists, you can just take what we already have and just introduce it in a new way. When the ambulance comes,
how are you going to
there's
fund
like
it?
2 or 3 people. When you
Well,
call
I
them and
actually
let
have
them know the
I can
case.
answer that
Yeah,
really
he can
easily.
go
I
right.
had
Yeah.
surgery, and a nurse came to my house every day for a while to make sure that
I'm not
everything
talking
was
about
good.
one nurse. I'm talking about a group of 6 people, because what we're talking about
I
is
don't agree with
people
you that you
who
need a group of 6 people for
So
the
just
vast
add more
majority of
people.
people.
this is very clear that you've never dealt with somebody who's
Yes,
bigger
I
than
have.
you, who's
Well, then
mentally
that's why on the phone,
mentally ill, who's
that's why on
violent.
the
It's somebody who's
I don't wanna
much
interrupt.
bigger than you
Yeah, you're more likely to
and
get the
violent
police.
and mentally
So that
ill.
happened to you, so
would
now you know
a
you need
team of
6 people. Okay.
So
You
this
would
is
need
why
a
you
team
should
of
get.
people.
This is why you
You are
get the
full of
6 foot.
anecdotes.
Get the
stop,
6 foot.
stop,
Get the
stop,
6 foot men
stop,
back into
stop,
healthcare.
Stop. So, Elder Drazi, in your case, you were willing to have your care. I'm assuming you didn't fight. Correct?
Correct.
Correct. So, what we're talking about isn't the people who want care. The people who want care can.
I'm
I
saying
think
that's how it's
everyone here.
dispatched. That
Everyone
was an
here.
example how it's
Sure.
dispatched.
Everyone here is okay with like increasing the capacity for those who want help to get help. I don't think there's anyone against that here. I could be wrong. But what we're talking about is the people who refuse care, who think that they're coming to implant a microchip in them, right? Or in the taking the pills are going to let them track them, and they're going to implant the alien eggs inside them and make them different people. And so they will fight tooth and nail against ever taking this medication. That's the people we're talking about. So when you have someone who is the size of, say, 𝕵𝖎𝖎, right? Who's 500 pounds, 6'4", right? And just this huge blob guy who will fight and like roll all over you, right? You're going to need more than one person to do that, even if they're big and strong.
I'm contesting 6 people. Also, Wick, you got to be careful. With all that microchip stuff, you just alienated like half of your conservative fan base. A lot of anti-vaxxers
Can you actually deal
out
with what
there.
he's saying though? So because I feel like
I
you're
did.
not
I was saying
engaging.
you don't
did
need.
already.
I was contesting
many
that you
people?
don't need 6 people. It
Okay,
depends
how many
on the
people?
situation.
And are you
Like
suggesting?
any other medical situation, you provide as many people are needed for that specific situation.
Right.
There's not a broad
So when-
amount. There's not a broad recommendation for how many people you need to treat any given
Okay.
person. It depends on
So
the
you're
situation.
suggesting that healthcare workers get like a training in like a close quarters combat
What?
because Wick's uncle. Yeah, I know. I
Goodness.
see
This shows a
same
lack of
training-
knowledge.
You being, please
This shows a
listen,
lack of
listen,
knowledge.
listen.
Go ahead, Doogie.
Stop.
Say that stupid stuff.
You grabbing your head and being surprised that I said that. It just indicates again that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I do know because I had
So-
somebody who
Wick's uncle,
was
for
trained as an
example-
EMT.
Please stop. Wick's uncle is not going to want to, because he doesn't want this medication to be given to him, or he's going to fight. And he's not just going to fight with his fists. He'll grab shit around the house. He'll grab a knife. He'll grab a fucking pan. He's going to fight.
He'll
Right?
throw
So to
dicks
say,
at
oh,
them.
well, hey, these fucking EMT people, they just need like a shield. And,
You don't know
they
what
need
you're
like a,
talking about. Go ahead,
yeah, I
Doogie.
do know what I'm talking. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So what actually happens is the cops go out. Right? The cops go out, they try to restrain the person, and sometimes they kill them. Right?
Well, that's
And
the problem. That's
and
why we're
sometimes
advocating against that. What are you
sometimes
talking
in the
about?
process,
That's how bad
they,
faith
they
you
hit
are.
the cop.
Keep
They
saying
hit the
that stupid
cop.
stuff.
They hit the cop
No,
and they go to jail.
you're not.
Right? So
listening.
what are you suggesting then? So they
I
go
knew
to-
he was going to say
please,
that, Stardust. That's why I was
please,
like,
stop.
That's a stupid statement.
Azzy, what are you suggesting? So they go to Wick's house, right? Or like they go to find Wick's uncle in the fucking woods. He has a big ass log. He's trying to hit them with it because he doesn't want to take the fucking medication. What are you suggesting?
I
what do they
suggest
do?
instead of the 6 foot cop, have the 6 foot EMT or the 6 foot home health aide to go in there and get as many 6-foot
one of
home health
them.
aides. Get as many. I just literally. You talking about not listening?
Yeah, so you're
The
literally
word
suggesting that
no.
they're trained like
Let me finish.
police.
Let me finish. I understand that because this is the same respect that y'all keep asking for, yet y'all don't give out. Maybe you need to be institutionalized. You can't control yourselves. What I was saying is send as many people as necessary, which is what 𝕵𝖎𝖎 already said multiple times, and make sure they are home health aides or EMT people who work this facility, who work this job. You don't send the police officer because they're not trained for this.
Well, 𝕬𝖎𝖎, you're missing the point
Home
that
health
Doobie's
aides are
making,
trained
which is
for
that there
this.
is magic in the walls of an institution
No,
that
what I'm
allows this to
suggesting
happen that can't
is
happen
that home
anywhere
health
else.
Well,
aides
if
aren't trained
you're
for
the person
this.
who thinks
Home
that
health
six
aides are
people is
trained
not
for this.
No, they're
required in
not.
certain
That's
No.
ridiculous.
situations, so that's
Number one.
Psychiatric nurses are trained
We
for
can't-
that.
Hold on, that's
We
stupid.
can't train
Hold on.
people to do
Home
this
health
outside of an
aides are not
institution.
trained
It's
for this.
impossible.
That is a
Talking about.
stupid
Go
thing
ahead,
to
Rebecca,
say.
I'm
I
sorry.
know
Again,
many
you're the
home
person
health
who
aides. They're
thinks
not trained for this.
They don't know what they're talking
I
about.
just said
I want to toss it to Rebecca.
psychiatric-
Typically,
Go
they're
ahead.
typically little old ladies who do
I
like
wanna-
nursing.
I wanna
They
top-
change diapers and shit on
I
the
wanna-
side.
I
Okay,
wanna
like they're
toss
not
it.
trained for this shit.
I want to toss it to Rebecca. Rebecca, what are you trying to say, please?
I was saying that psychiatric nurses are trained for that. They are trained to handle large, unpredictable people and situations. They
Yes.
are.
Yeah,
They
you're just
are.
not dealing with
So you
reality.
don't
You're
have
a fucking idiot.
But yes, they are.
You expect me to believe?
Alright, okay.
Well,
You expect me to
I want to give it to
believe?
Stardust. I want to give it to
Ah.
Stardust. I want to give it to Stardust.
Psychiatric
Stardust, go
nurses
ahead.
psychiatric nurses are trained to deal with that, but they're also trained to deal with that with the assistance of multiple facility members who can hold somebody down if they're being violent and if they're much stronger and larger than the psychiatric nurse. Yes, they're trained to deal with that, but that is not without the help of other people, of multiple other people, and in restraining a violent patient. And I'm sorry if the patient is over 6 feet and has 200 pounds on you and has access to everything around them. They will throw everything at you that they can. They will use their fists. They will draw blood from you when they can to prevent
That's
you
the
from
nature
doing
of the
anything.
job.
I think Rebecca, like me, has seen some nurses take down guys 3 times their size because these
Ah,
nurses
well,
are
Again,
bad bitches. I've
that's
seen
Nice.
it.
Hand-to-hand
Look,
combat
nurses are
nurses.
bad
They're all
bitches.
like
I
kung
won't
fu
disagree
fighters.
with you. Nurses are
Yeah,
bad
they
bitches,
are.
but we are talking about in most cases, even if psychiatric nurses
We
are
don't
trained to
know
deal with
most
that,
cases. What are
yes,
you
I
appealing
do.
to?
Yes, I do, motherfucker. In
All right,
most
so drop
cases,
it.
where
Pull it up.
excuse me, let me finish
Yes.
what I'm saying. When psychiatric nurses are dealing with this, right? If there is a extremely violent person, that does not mean that there are not other facility people who are there helping her hold that person down.
All right, so back
What
this
is
Why
up.
are you
You said
assuming a
no.
nurse is
No. Don't even indulge this. Back that stuff up. You said you had
Sorry,
the data
Rebecca, I didn't mean
points.
to interrupt you.
Back it up. Back it up.
Oh,
I don't.
Show me about these
I don't-
most
Hold on, you guys
instances where
made the claim
people
that
are so
nurses are
small
bad
they
bitches
can't
and they
deal
take
with
down a guy 3
I
times
need
their
you to
size,
back up the
etc.
claim
Why
that
don't you back that up?
nurses can handle
We're
a
talking
you
about
back up
the
the
exception
idea?
to the rule. We're talking we're talking about the
We understand you're
Hold
talking
on,
about the
hold on.
exceptions. That's a fucking problem.
Obviously we're joking. Bad faith
Then
individuals.
why would you even
I
say
think
And
that?
number
there's an
two,
I wasn't
Wait,
joking.
I'm not.
Why
Stop,
would you
stop,
use
stop,
that
stop,
argument
stop,
if it's
stop,
a
because
fucking
very
joke?
unclear to me. It's very unclear to me that 𝕵𝖎𝖎 was joking. Were you joking, 𝕵𝖎𝖎?
No.
It was
And
partial
the reason
joke.
why I
Drazzy,
used an
let Drazzy speak
anecdote.
for himself. Drazzy,
The
go
reason
ahead.
why
let
I
Azzy
used an
respond to that.
anecdote is because Doobie and Stardust have provided literally only anecdotes. I'm the only person that has provided anything that is actually based in reality that anybody can look up to support the things that I'm saying. Stardust said, well, I have seen. Doobie saying, well, I don't believe you. You're just stupid. But I don't see any evidence of
Azzy,
anything
why do you
guys
think-
suggested.
Azzy, why do you
I've
think
provided
Drazzy-
evidence?
I
Oh,
worked
God.
in the
Azzy,
medical,
why do you think-
I worked in the medical field before I was a streamer. Okay. I don't want to go into detail about the things that I know and the things that I've done, but I will tell you that there is still yes, there are cases where a single nurse can take down a violent patient, but that is not the norm. And in a lot of cases, you've got the facility helping you do
Which
that.
is what I said.
So
Which
is
is
what I
play
said.
these
It's the
people the
exception
same
to
as
the
you can
rule.
play anybody
I have data.
else.
I have data to share. with
Yeah,
the
thank
class.
you. Wick, let me go real
Sure.
quick.
And
then you can
well,
drop
I'll
the
drop the data
hardcore fact.
and then you can go, right? I will drop
Alright.
this into the
Alright,
group
okay,
chat, right? This is a paper that says that, well, you can read the abstract. There are more mentally ill people in jail and in prisons today than there are in hospitals. And my question to your side of these things is that a good thing?
No,
Why?
they should have been getting treatment.
Wait, which side?
Your side. Again,
Us?
this
Of
is
course,
the result.
Of course.
This is why I'm saying the result of deinstitutionalization in the Reagan administration has been that instead of mental institutions, that these people go to jail. Right?
Well, that's not. No.
That has been the result. That's
a disingenuous. It's not because of the deinstitutionalization.
It was
it's
a direct
because
result of it.
It is a direct, but that doesn't mean cause. What's it called? Correlate. That's a correlation. What's it called? Just the cause does the effect doesn't mean
causation isn't
causation.
causation.
Yeah. See, what
it's
you
a correlation,
don't
not a
understand
causation.
is a cause
No,
is they're
hold on.
mentally ill. I see. That's what.
No,
that's what
it's not the cause. It's because they didn't reinvest those resources back into community facilities, and they didn't address the problem about the community because they didn't really care about the individual. They just cared about facilitating the institution.
So
which is their job.
And number one, like the one Jordan Neely went to, that he walked out of, by the way.
Mind you,
2 weeks
that
before
is
he
the
died.
government and state's job is to facilitate the institution, but it's also their job to make sure the individual's okay, so that the institution is okay. If they don't reinvest all those resources back in community facilities,
what do you think our
that's
position
why
is?
they get locked up. That's why we have lack of training.
What do you think our position is?
You're asking questions. I'm most likely gonna answer them if you just allow me to finish. If you just let me finish, you probably won't even asking these silly questions.
I dropped a link into the group chat that talks about how psychiatric hospitals have evolved. Maybe that will be informative for some of you guys.
I mean, yeah, we agree. We know that they have evolved, but we're just saying there's not enough of them, and they're not localized.
Well,
we've been saying that from jump.
Is that what you're saying?
What do you think our position is?
Your position is institutionalize them, just lock them away. What you don't realize is that we're actually agreeing with you, but we just want it on a smaller scale. Now, my question to you, my question is to you. No, hold on, wait.
I need you to lay out what you think my position is.
No, hold on. So I'm gonna ask.
Institutionalize them and lock them away. Let me ask you. What the fuck does that mean?
That's just what that's our position now, Doobie.
So let me ask you a question. All right, what is wrong with community-based institutions?
I think the way that you've been describing community-based institutions, quote unquote,
describing how.
So you have these places that are local, that are well funded, where there's oversight, where people can make sure that they're not being abused, and in cases where it's required that you force them to take their medication, you can do it at that facility in the community and just make sure that they're not being abused or whatever. That's very similar, I think, to what my position is.
Well, then we agree. So what's the problem?
Listen, so when you say, wait, please. So when you say that my position is to institutionalize them, lock them away, like, what do you mean by that? What do you
I'm just assuming that because you've been arguing with my point that we both agree on.
Okay,
so I'm only. Go ahead.
Stop. One of the problems I'm seeing, Ozzy, your position is different than 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 and Rebecca's. You are arguing from a third position. 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 and Rebecca are saying, no, we don't think, even if they were small, even if they were like more localized, we don't think involuntary long-term institutionalization is good, and we would oppose that. Whereas you are saying, well, actually, I think I don't like the big asylums, but if we made them smaller and more compact and more local and more community-based, then it would be okay. Is that
that's just me meeting. That's just me meeting. Okay. Me trying to be the bridge.
𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 isn't building like 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙, as I understand it. And 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 but 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 isn't building these bridges. He's unwilling to build this bridge, right? Is that true?
Whenever he said that, every time he's alluded to that, I've said better is better. I think that's better than what's being suggested by Stardust and Doobie, but it's not where I want to be.
Okay, so Alder, what do you think?
Hold on. Don't ask a question. Let me answer your question first, right? Because you still haven't answered mine. Because every time I've spoken, 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 and Rebecca both nodded their head in agreement, and only you two have been at odds with me. So I'm only here to assume that you have a problem with the things I'm saying beyond the hyperbole.
I've been mostly arguing with Elder 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙. Not really you. Just you've been like combative with me. So you've
been defending him. That's the issue. And then you say that his position was actually a joke. And then you say that his position was actually a joke, but it wasn't a joke to him. So I think
because it's funny. That's why we laughed when we said it, because it's funny when we say the short grandma is able to combat and take down the 600-6-foot man. We were joking. We are being both serious because it's
okay.
in instances it's okay, but it's funny because it's an exception to the rule, and we're not saying that's what we think should be the end all be all. We're saying that, like we said multiple times already, if you're really listening, get the 6-foot guys. You probably need to stop being police officers. Hold on. This is why y'all keep arguing, because you just won't even patience.
Go for it.
Get the 6-foot guys off the police squad. Get them trained in being a home health aide or EMT, so they can go up and be and actually fulfill the requirements for the situation at hand. If we get the 6-foot guy, as many guys as we need, we won't need the grandma who needs a backflip and karate chop the 600-pound 6-foot man.
Okay, but 𝕵𝖎𝖎, I would agree with you. Wait, listen. So I'd agree with you. I think where we would actually agree too is if that person is in a place where they need to be forced to take the medication because they're a danger to themselves and others, right? Because they think the walls are screaming at them, or they're telling them to kill people, whatever the fuck. After you get them to take the medication, after they're sedated, we would take them to this local community hospital where they'd be held against their will and treated, right, until they're okay. They're assessed to be okay to leave, right? Not just locked away forever and you shut the fucking door on them. You treat them. You treat them like human beings and you give them help, right? And you allow them a space where their family can come and see them whenever the fuck they want while they're going through treatment, so they can get all the community support and familiar support that they need. I think what 𝕵𝖎𝖎 would say is, yeah, if that person doesn't want to go to this place long term, right, then you can't force them to go, even if they think the walls are telling them to kill people.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's no reason why the care that you're talking about happening in this facility can't happen in their home. There's no reason why we can't have some kind of like house arrest where we take the treatment to them. There's lots of people that could be hospitalized for physical ailments, but instead they opt to have it done in their home because it's better for them. So the problem here is just we don't care enough to.
Because maybe I'm misunderstanding. So 𝕵𝖎𝖎,
yeah.
If someone was not violent, let's take violence off the table. Let's take violence. They're not violent, but they have demonstrated that they are unable to take care of themselves. Right? They have dementia. They're just wandering the streets, right? They think that they're hearing voices. It makes them unable to interact in society. They can't hold a job, etc., etc., etc. So you're saying, right, that if they don't want help, they're saying, no, I don't want any help, that you would be okay with locking them in their home, keeping them from leaving, and forcing them to take medication.
Yeah. If they are a danger to themselves and others, and we have the option
No, they're not a danger to themselves and others. They're just unable to take care of themselves. So they're not violent, right?
Well, we need to have somebody go to the home to make sure that their needs are being met. And if they are able to get their needs met through this person, or through this system, then they should be able to basically they should be allowed as much freedom as is safely possible for the person at all times. Now that's why you don't hear me saying, like, if the person is criminally insane and they're like trying to kill people, yeah, it's okay to institutionalize some people, but it's at the most extreme end of the spectrum. I don't think that we care about these people at all if we're saying that we want to take the people that make our lives more uncomfortable, or that make us uncomfortable, or that they are difficult to deal with. So we want to put them in a facility because it's more financially doable, or any of these other reasons. These are all bad. This is all putting all the negative ramifications of the thing that they didn't choose onto them.
I'll use my personal example, right? My uncle had a home. He could not continue to afford his home or keep his home because of his severe mental illness. He lost his home, right? And while he is welcome in mine or my parents or my other family members, he often chooses not to stay in our home because of shame, because of fear, many, many reasons, right? What do we do with the people who don't have a home? How do we give home care to someone who does not have a home?
Okay, so
There's
if
two
you allow me
options
to
there.
answer,
Well,
Can I answer
real
I want
quick?
𝕉𝖎 to answer. Ask 𝕉𝖎 a
All right,
question.
go
I'm
ahead.
curious.
So there's two options here. One, he can be placed under one of the family members' care if they have been evaluated by the state to make sure that they're capable of providing such care in conjunction with the state mental health system that I'm proposing. Or we can help get them into a home, and part of the system that gets them a home is also making sure that there is the necessary amount of mental health services provided to them that would be determined by the person assessing their whole case. Like they would have a caseworker to determine how much mental health services they need in the home, which could be all the way up to really rotating healthcare workers that are there all the time. I just don't want these people completely removed from society. There's no way that I can be convinced that this is going to be better for their mental health or better for society.
That's why housing first is such a big issue in homeless services. When someone is housed in an adequate manner, that is like adding so much stability to someone's life. So if someone loses their housing, that is going to throw off their treatment and their ability to even like conceptualize a future for themselves. So that's why people talk about housing first. So I would say that's a huge important piece. If someone loses their house, that's going to throw off all other aspects of their life.
I mean, I was gonna say that. Well, yeah, I agree with both. I would only add on that this is why I was bringing. We also need to make sure there's a distinction between those like we've been doing in this conversation, those who are mentally divergent, who are that divergency is leading into mental illness, and those who have mental illnesses. All right, because once we're able to figure out the difference between those two, we can say, hey, you have the agency and the autonomy to deal with your divergency, so you don't become ill. Versus those who may be mentally ill, they have autonomy, but they're not really agents. They're not taking care of themselves. So maybe they need to live with somebody else, or we need to bring somebody into their home or institutionalize them.
I think institutionalizing should
I
be
wanna-
reserved for the most extreme cases.
I want to give it
And
to
extremely short and limited, and basically one function of institutionalization that I think is valuable is to put time between when someone is in a crisis and when they do something drastic like hurting themselves or others. That's why like suicide intervention is so important, just to put time between that crisis moment and a consequence.
And
Do
that's
we,
why I said, I don't believe in long term.
Stop. Do we not think that there are some instances, right, where some illnesses and some people and how they deal with them cannot be let out, right? That because they cannot be treated, right, or cannot be treated sufficiently, that for their own well-being, they have to be kept in a space. Because I know plenty, not just my uncle, but I know others. I've dealt with others who would leave these institutions after their crisis and just go off and be forgotten, right?
There's some people,
Go ahead.
there's some people who, unfortunately, even if you get them on medication, even if you get them with therapy, they are never going to be 100%. They're never even going to be 50% because they are just so far gone. There are some people who, with all of that treatment, they're just never going to be functional members of society, even with medication, even with therapy. So, I hate to say it, right? Obviously, the ideal situation would be where a family could take care of that person, but that's not always the case. And when that's not the case, I do think it's better to have them in an institution that can take care of them, can be caring for them and help them take their medication and stay on track, rather than having them out on the streets, them not even taking medication, and them not even seeing therapy, and not even being able to do any of those things.
Go ahead, 𝕬𝖎.
Yeah, I was just hoping we could get a response to that from specifically Rebecca.
On which?
What Stardust and Wix just
Oh,
pointed to.
on
The idea
this
that there's some people
specific.
who would need to be forcefully institutionalized long term or permanently.
I think there is a difference between someone who is experiencing severe mental illness and someone who literally cannot have custody of themselves. So I'm thinking of someone like an adult with Down syndrome, or a severely mentally ill person who is literally like suffering from some kind of illness or like disease. I think, and what we do with them now, what we try to do with them now is to put them in group homes where they can live some semblance of like a family life, even if it's not with their real family. And that I think is important for those people. And that needs to be funded and well maintained because the like opportunities for abuse are so rife. But I'm not against that. I'm against the like warehousing of mentally ill people outside of society, which is what institutionalization was.
Wait, but I feel like you didn't really engage with what I was actually pointing to. I'm not talking about somebody who's like has Down syndrome or they're like extremely anxious or they're like it's like agoraphobic. I think it is when you're afraid to go outside or whatever the fuck it. We're not talking about. Yeah, we're not talking about those people really. We're talking about people who have like violent delusions, right, or like psychosis, or
So
I think there's
people who-
definitely
paranoid schizophrenia.
Can I answer, please?
And
I think there's
just
definitely times
just really quickly. So I think, so I guess the contention would be that putting those people in group homes, not only would that be like dangerous to the other people in the group home, if they're like unmedicated, but if you're putting them there and you're not forcing them to take the medication or forcing them to stay there, that could obviously lead to like bad outcomes, right?
Sure, and I agree. And I think that there are certain people who need to be taken care of in a more secure setting. I don't disagree with that at all. There are definitely people who are more dangerous to others around them, and I think that they do need to be taken care of in a different setting. I don't disagree.
There are some people who are so ill, right, that when they're not on medication, they're the ones who will become violent, right? They're the ones who will have blow-ups and things like that, and they're very hard to take care of. And then even when they're on medication, they are still so sick, they're still so ill that they will never be a functional member of society, although they may be less likely to be violent, right? So
I
I
think
think it's important to talk about what.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's important to talk about what we mean when we say a functional member of society too.
never
because
having a job.
That's
never
obviously
having a
very,
job.
very fraught.
Yeah, but
Yep,
never
no,
having
I
a
know.
job, never being able to take care of themselves, not being able to even make their own food on some occasions, right? Being reliant on other people for the rest of their lives, right?
Mhm.
You literally
and I
just
agree
described
that those are,
severely
like,
autistic
severe-
people.
Yeah, I agree that those are like
his
severe
mental
issues that people
divergency.
have, and they need those needs to be met. But I don't think that we should consider those people as like not a part of society. You know what I mean?
They're
Like
not
just because
functional in
someone needs a
society,
high
but-
level of care doesn't mean
Yeah.
that they can't participate in society and be a part of us out here, you know? Like I think like even someone like Rose Kennedy, I don't know how many of you know like the exact story with her. She was a very kind of strong woman who had mental illness, and in the 60s, I believe, she was lobotomized, and it went poorly, and she was severely mentally impacted, and she lived the rest of her life in an institution. Her family was the Kennedys, like the royal family of the Democratic Party, and they did this to her. And there's no reason that someone like that needs to be kept away from society. So what I'm talking about is like people who are severely impacted and need a high level of care cannot be kept away from the rest of us, even if they need a high level of care.
In fact,
I would-
the healing
I think-
process occurs when they start to be around more people who are typical.
But they're not going to be healed. Is
Yeah,
my
some people
point, right?
can't be healed.
Some
No,
people
because
cannot
there's
be
no
healed.
such there's no
Yep,
no
it's true. Some
only
people
the
are never
only
going to make 100%
Yeah.
progress.
yeah, there's some individuals, but how many people
50%?
how
Even
many
1%
people
would
are
use it.
how many people do we know are like that where they just can't be healed? And if it's very few.
So many.
Yeah,
many.
because
Oh, hold on, but to be
there's
clear,
so-
like,
no, no,
as
no,
you
no,
were
no,
talking
no.
about the edge
No,
cases,
no,
we're
no,
not
no.
talking
Let
about
me
put-
respond to that first,
Wait,
Doobie.
what's the
only
bar?
reason why there's so many is because the problem has been so ignored and exacerbated that the number has grown. But
Not
in
even
reality,
that, though. In some cases,
re-
some
in
people just
reality-
aren't receptive, right?
okay, yeah, true. But if they were receptive, and we need to start thinking about and discussing the processes of them becoming receptive to the healing process. In reality,
again, Azzy,
in reality, I'm just trying to finish. Jeez.
Sure.
yes. In reality, those individuals are few and far in between. It's just that
Fair
over
enough.
time, the number grows because it's ignored.
Okay, so
They're not
Azzy,
few and
so
far
the
between, but okay.
Well,
well,
Doobie, I'm going to let you go, but Drazi did ask a question, and I'm curious your answer. What is your bar for this? So we mentioned like super severe autism, right? Would that be a spot where you would draw the line where they're because okay, if indulge me, okay? So one of the problems I've seen with mental illness is we let the people who suffer the least from it be the face of it. So for autism, it's always highly functioning autists that we see that are the face of it. But that's only a portion of it. We don't see the people who have very severe levels of these diseases that cannot interact like the high functioning people can. They suffer it to a level that is far above and beyond that we would not recognize it today as autism. We would think it's something else, but it is. It's a severe form of it. And we do this ooh-ification of mental illness, right? Where it's cute and, oh, we're just quirky, right? We got this quirky trait that like we have and it's just part of our personality. Ooh-woo. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the people who have severe. So to Doobie, where is your line here? Where is you'd say this is the this is a spot where we're just gonna remove you, right?
So for actual like permanent institutionalization, I would say that they're like a permanent danger to themselves and others. I.e., I've been mentioning people like that think the walls are talking to them or screaming at them. That is something that actually happens to some people, right? They think items are talking to them. They think that people are saying things to them that they aren't. They see people as like demons. They have crazy fucking scary delusions, right? So those people, I think that's like I'm not, when I say that they should be like held permanently, I don't mean that like you just like lock them away and throw away the key. I mean, you give them treatment and look for ways to help them. And if the only way to help them right now is to keep them there and to keep them fed, housed, try to provide them with some kind of community, some kind of entertainment so that they're able to live as happy a life as possible and not end up on the street killing themselves or others, then that's what you do. Right, and through the entire process, you're trying to find a way to treat them. You're trying to find a way to help them.
You got it.
But
You
I think
nailed
that
it there, Doobie.
wait, 1 second. But
If
I
it's
think
the
the
only.
issue, well, I would say them, but also people that Wick mentioned, like someone who's like severely autistic. Yeah, there. I think there's obviously like a case for putting people like that in permanent housing, but it wouldn't be the same kind of permanent housing. Right? They would be like another place with other people who aren't a danger to themselves or others, where they just need someone to make sure that they're eating, make sure that they're taking a shower, make sure that they're clothed, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, yeah, that's totally fine. Put them somewhere permanent. If their family can't take care of them, it's too much to strain on the family, give the family somewhere. They can come visit their loved one whenever they want in a place where they know that they're safe and they're taken care of. That's totally reasonable. I think that the issue that that's been plaguing this conversation, one of the issues, is that we're mixing up like people who are like slow, like Rose Kennedy. She was like slow and like retarded or whatever. Like that was a word back then. So they lobotomized her, which is obviously ridiculous, right? And we're mixing them up with like people who are like ADHD or like anxious or like having a suicidal moment or bipolar, whatever. We're not talking about those people. Those people are obviously like more common. When we're talking about like putting people in forced institutions, where they're going to get mandatory care that they can't opt out of, we are talking about the edge cases. But there are a lot of those edge cases, and right now they typically end up on the street because their families can't take care of them.
I want to speak to that because I think we underestimate the number. So according to the CDC, according to the CDC, seriously mental ill people, and this includes people with like severe schizophrenia, some cases of PTSD, psychosis, severe bipolar disorder, etc. They make up 5% of the population. 5%, that's a lot, gang. So that means in my chat right now, at least 3 of y'all, right? At least 3 of y'all, right? I know that's not how statistics work, but you know what I'm saying? This is a significant portion. These aren't just onesies and twosies. There are more of those people than there are of 5% is a lot. I just want to say.
There are more of those people than there are the trans people that we hear about so much, right? Like that's just the reality. And some of them are probably trans, if we're being honest. However,
God.
I think that so that's important, but I think that even among that group of people, right, just like super clear, a lot of schizophrenia is treatable, right? They have medication now that people take, and they take it and they live totally normal lives, or somewhat as normal lives as possible on this medication that only helps them, even if it's not perfect, even if it makes them feel numb. Or I know that a lot of people are like suicidal. There are a lot of cases where people are negatively impacted by the medication, but there are a lot of cases where they're like success stories, right? So what we're talking about like mandatory long-term institutionalization is the edge cases, right? Is people who can't handle being out on their own because they're going to end up on the street, and they're going to end up hurting themselves or other people.
I just want to mention
Go
something
ahead.
about Rose Kennedy. So yes, her end state of life was very much an outlier. Like having a lobotomy is like really major. But the way she ended up like that was that she exhibited some symptoms of bipolar. So what was done to her? They had someone with bipolar who was kind of an erratic personality and a very like independent person, and they were thinking, what do we do with her? That's how she got lobotomized. Yeah. Part of the problem of like the way that we have dealt with people who have like what we would call now like less severe mental illness. We used to put them in that position because of the stigma against mental illness. So that's part of what we need to totally reject. Like we need to care for people in a better way so that we don't end up doing that to them.
Yeah, but again, that was like 80 years ago, before we had medication available to deal with those things. So obviously, like back
It was
then,
like 50 years ago.
Yeah, I wanna.
She would still be alive.
I don't want to move off this. I wanna
she
actually
died
engage
in
with this.
2005.
I want to engage with this. Rebecca, do you think that it was an inappropriate question to ask? Should we not ask when we come to these people who have severe mental issues, what do we do with them? Do you think that's an entirely unfair question to ask?
No.
Okay.
Wick, what's the bar though? I think that people just keep using this broad thing. Like, what is the bar? I'm okay with some people being in a facility forever, but it's a very small percentage of the people that I think that even you're talking about. These are people that would that are consistently with medication a danger to themselves and others. The medication is mainly to make them subduable so that they're not hurting anybody, including themselves. If you have somebody who wants to constantly kill everybody and the meds aren't working or anything, what else can we do? This is us exhausting every other option to ensure that this person had a good shot at being able to be a part of society. Unfortunately, the same thing with like the criminal justice system. Some people we have to remove, but I'd say it has to be when we have to. We have to.
We can't just get tired of dealing with them and then
no,
throw
but
them
the
away.
situation that I'm talking about is specifically not just that. Like we're talking about people who are barely present when they're on medication. Maybe they're not violent when they're on medication, but if they're outside of the institution, they're going to stop taking their medication. They're going to have nowhere to go. And then when they stop taking their medication, they will be more likely to be violent, right? And even when they're on their medication, it's not like they can hold down a job. It's not like they can take care of themselves in a proper way. It's not like they can choose dietary options for themselves that are going to be good for them, right? And in those cases, like in that case, that person is not even violent when they're on medication. But there is, unless the family has the resources to take them in, and often cases they don't, there's no other place for them to go except for a long-term care facility. And I'm not advocating. I think Doobie and I are not advocating for lobotomies. We're not advocating for old medicine, outdated medicine that was frankly horrible. We are advocating for long-term care facilities for people to be taken care of by professionals who know how to take care of them and will give them the proper respect and treatment that they need.
Infallible Al for $5, and then I'll let you go, 𝕬𝖎. For $5, this is also an interesting statement. What this creates in practice is people being afraid to get help for fear of losing their freedom. It already happens with crisis hotlines. So what do we say to that, Doobie and Stardust? this forced institutionalization would make it so that less people seek help because they're afraid that they're going to go to the crazy bin or the loony bin or whatever, right?
I mean, it's not
I
like
think
we're advocating for the like average person to be institutionalized either, right? But you know, what we are advocating for is like for there to be facilities where people who don't have families that have the resources to take care of them can go, and be taken care of and be kept, you know, on track, and have a routine, and for other people, like short-term care facilities are just fine, or you know, halfway houses or things like that. I don't know what Doobie's going to say, so go ahead,
Doobie, go
Doobie.
ahead.
I think what was it, Azzy? Or I think yeah, it was Drazzy that touched on this. We need to remove the stigma, right? I think this idea that if you get put into a mental hospital, they're just gonna lock you away and lobotomize you and fucking spray you with cold water because that's what happened 200 years ago. Is like it's part of the issue, right? I think that we need to let people know, hey, it is okay to have mental health problems, right? It is okay to come forward and get help, and there are resources, and people want to help you because bare minimum, the government, as fucked up as it is, wants you to generate money, wants you to generate widgets and shit. So they want you to be a functioning member of society. They want you to pay taxes, right? So there will be ways, hopefully, I think there are some now, but hopefully more in the future, for you to come forward, get the help you need, and if that means you need to go into the hospital sometimes because you're sick, that's okay. That's what you do when you're sick. You go to the hospital for a while, you get better, and then you get out. And if that means you need to stay in there for a month, well, shit, that's what you do when you're sick. You go to the hospital, you stay there until you're better, and you get out. I think removing that stigma is extremely important.
Oh, same question, but with a different spin, right? Because I think Doobie mentioned this to Drazzy and to Rebecca and to Azzy. Do you not think that your rhetoric of painting all these institutions as places of abuse that are rife with corruption that someone could never escape is also preventing people from seeking help that would otherwise benefit from being in such a facility, at least for a short time, by painting it as something that is a black hole that you can never escape? Do you not think that you're doing some harm there in preventing people from making people too scared to actually seek out an institution that would otherwise help them? Go ahead.
No, I advocate for short-term care facilities. I think Rebecca made a great point when she talked about putting time and distance between the event that causes you to go there. I think short-term care facilities are fantastic for getting people on medication when they don't have the choice to not take it. And then after they have been in the correct state of mind is when they would be say, okay, you've been here, you're medicated, you're doing good, and we're going to release you. We're going to release you contingent on this plan here that you're going to meet with the worker that we've assigned you and provide you the necessary resources you need to not end up back here. This is one of the things I keep trying to point out too, is that I'm all for the state providing additional resources to help these people. Like if they go to the family can you can give them the resources necessary so that they're not an additional burden that the family's not going to reject. I don't think anything that I'm saying is trying to keep people from seeking mental health treatment. I'm trying to keep the scary black hole option off the table. So that way that the options that are available to them are not scary and they're not terrible.
For $5.50 in Canadian money, Testicle Johnson says, interesting discussion. Question for the panel. What if we perhaps cover them in leeches to get the demons out of them? Fair.
It's a good
Well,
idea,
you don't
actually,
need.
from Testicle Johnson. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
And
but
just
you,
real quick, gang, hey, if you're liking this content, if you're enjoying what we're doing, and if you have questions for the show, just donate some money. Throw some bits, throw some subs, super chat, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, follow the channel. Throw me your Prime sub if you got it. Look, I can't do this for free. So if you want us to have a robust discussion, you're going to need to fund it, gang. Give me money. Okay, carry on.
yeah, like to the question. I know it's joking, but essentially, it's like what I've been alluding to. You can't medicate the demons away. You can medicate the external application to it's just a mitigation to the problem, but for a whole holistic healing for the therapy, so that they're not in an institution for years on end. See, like, I'm not advocating for, just like, I'm not just trying to play both sides. I understand that if they get healed, they need to be in the institution as long as they need to be, not not any more than that. We often see that people end up in the institution longer than they need to be because things aren't properly applied, and we're trying to medicate issues away, which would probably be healed over, with some therapy, with some, proper diet, with some communicate, with some, personal verbal therapy, with prayer. Pray the demons out. You don't medicate the demons out. But if you're not going to use those tools, then yeah, people are going to end up in the institution longer than they need to be.
Testicle Johnson was obviously saying that to troll me because he saw my stream about my leech clay fetish. So
yeah, I know it was a joke, but that's what I was trying to. Yeah, but I only said that because people were saying I was the third option, where I was against you and Rebecca about short-term and long-term institutionalization. Go ahead, Wick.
One of the things that's frustrating me about you in your conversation here is you keep saying that medication isn't going to work forever, and it isn't going to work. I think you're wrong. I think medication absolutely works in a lot of cases.
Huge part of
Not
it.
every.
Yeah, it's huge.
And
part
by
of it.
working, and just let me finish. By working, I don't mean they eventually get off of it. No. I'm meaning when they're on it, and as they continue to get on it, and they'll probably be on it for the rest of their lives, it works. But this is the thing. Doobie talked about removing stigma. We need to remove that stigma. Being on medication for the rest of your life should not be stigmatized to the degree it is. Because again,
are you saying I'm
a lot of
Wick is right.
Yeah,
I'll be on these for the rest of my life, and I'm happy to take them.
A lot of the reasons, right, that these people who have severe paranoia and psychosis and delusions don't want to take the medication is because of the cultural stigma against the medication. They they see. Look, one of the worst things that ever happened to my uncle is he saw Inception. Okay, so now he thinks he's living in a dream, and that broke him in his mind in a real way. It became unmanageable because he saw it as some kind of this gospel truth thing. It was a problem. But when we treat, when they hear these things or see these stories or see these kind of stigmas get put into the world, they believe it, they internalize it, and when they do it, it's different than when you or I do it. It becomes a problem. And thank you for the subscription, Feder Methodist. Earlier, YOLO Bowling Stuff gave a gift sub, a few other gift subs. Gang, keep going. We're trying to get 25 more, right? Or 24 more now, so I can meet my goal. I know it's a lot, but I do need the money, so thank you. $5 from Times and Wine to say Testicle Johnson is wrong. You only need some Coke for the ghosts in your blood. Fair enough. I want to toss it to you, Azzy, and then see your response, and then we'll continue.
Yeah, because it's not me stigmatizing it. If you think I'm stigmatizing it, then I would feel like you're not being charitable to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you want healing, it's gonna take more. So if the problem goes away completely, now I granted, yeah, there are some people whose problems are just so bad that they will never go away, and that they're going to need that medication for the rest of their lives. Yes, but I'm trying to propose that there are individuals who are going to institutions, because if it's short-term care, that means they're being healed.
No, they come out with the meds, though. They come out with a prescription.
With the meds, and they continue to take the medications for the rest of their life. Yes.
Yeah, okay, a lot of medications are from a chemical imbalance in the brain. So the brain's not going to continue to produce after they're on it for so long.
I just want to kind of I think part of what you're trying to say, Azzy, is that medication is one pillar of treatment. It's not going to make healing for somebody. It's not going to entirely fix somebody's life. It's one piece. The other piece might be housing. The other piece might be some form of engagement in the community, some form of stability in their life. It's going to be one piece. So a lot of the reason that people fall apart and end up in bad places where they're on the bridge, ready to jump, a lot of that is because they have the situation where they need medication, they have some kind of illness, but all of the other pieces are not there for them. So medication isn't going to fix a broken life. I think that's like part of what you're getting at.
I mean, no, that's exactly what I'm getting at. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, just if you don't have everything else situated, the medication is just it's just keeping the symptoms at bay until they appear again. But if you want the symptoms
And it may
to
not
go
even
away,
work.
you need
It may
every
not
other
work for
pillars.
you if all
Yeah,
those
it
things
may
aren't there.
work. A lot of these medications are experimental, and they're trying them out on people. So that's what I meant before. But yeah,
Right,
if you
but
don't have
part
all
of
the other pillars in place, and yeah,
yeah,
Can
sure.
I-
I
I'm
agree
gonna have
with
to
you,
go
but
some.
part of
But
the
yeah.
issue with this, the way that hear that you're talking about it, people will say, oh, like these medications have side effects, but by far these side
I didn't
effects
say that.
are not nearly as bad as as the mental illness itself, right?
But that's not what I'm saying,
Well,
Stardust.
I know that's not what you're saying, but let me finish what I'm saying. Yeah, like one thing that I do have an issue with what you're saying is that it's still not focusing on the fact that one of the biggest obstacles to deal with when it comes to somebody who's very mentally ill or even just moderately mentally ill is that they want to stop taking their medications. A lot of the time it is built into the
I already
illness.
addressed this before.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just reiterating. I'm reiterating again that we need to have this. We need to have this. You're saying the experimental or whatever, that we need to have this attitude towards medication. That it is not. I'm sorry, but it's for most.
No, I said a lot more
It's
than.
not
Okay.
optional. For most people, it is not optional.
Okay.
It's something you have to take for the rest
Can
of
I
your life.
respond real quickly, Wick?
Well, actually, we're kind of running out of time, and I want to respect everyone's time here. So what we're gonna do now, okay, is we're gonna end the panel proper. I'm gonna give everyone here a chance to shout themselves out, to give a closing thought, since you can respond in your closing thoughts, right? And if we can get, let's say, 5 gift subs by the time they're done, I'll open it up and we'll carry on, and they can stay if they'd like, or if they need to go, they can go. If we can't get that, though, we'll just close it out. So that's the deal. 5 gift subs in chat by the time they're done, or we're just gonna close it out. Up to you, gang. Let's go first to, well, let's let Azzy close this out first. So Azzy, go ahead, and then we'll just go around the room.
To quickly deal with Stardust's issue with my talking points, she's deconstructing what I'm saying. She's not putting everything together in totality of what I said so far. I said we can still give them the medication, but give them in a smaller dose where they still feel like themselves. Some people take this medication where they feel like, oh, I can't think, I don't have my feelings, I don't have my emotions, I don't feel like myself anymore taking this medication. You can still give them medication, and maybe the treatment will be longer in the smaller dose, but at least they're still taking their medication. They're still getting the help they need. If they're prescribed more, then yeah, if they need more, they need more. It is what it is. My name is 𝕖𝖓, aka 𝕖𝖓, from Calm Kingdom on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. It's not Twitch right now. I changed my name because weirdos were DMing me. But it should be back to where it should be in a couple days. I think like 5. Appreciate you, Wick. You follow through, my man. Shout out to you, man.
Thanks. Well, thank you for being here. Always appreciate you. And I'll stop DMing you if you're worried about the weirdos DMing. I apologize.
Nah, man, you're good. You're my weirdo, Wick.
Fair enough. Doobie, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Doobie. Thanks for having me.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Okay, 𝕖𝖓, go ahead.
I think oh, my biggest frustration throughout this whole panel is it seems like I made a lot of points that we're not engaged with. I think that if you're in favor of these institutions, I think it's really important to look at the reason why you're in favor of them. If it's for financial reasons, I think that you probably have your priorities improperly aligned. Otherwise, I'm 𝕐𝖓. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. I tried to stream this on Politics, but their website isn't functioning correctly for me yet. But I'll be restreaming over to that as well in the near future if it stops being broken.
Well, thank you for being here. Sorry you felt frustrated, and maybe if people donate and we get into the open, maybe someone else will address it. But for now, let's go to Rebecca, please.
My name's Rebecca Christensen. I am at Rebecca right now on Twitter. And if you want to read some gay romance novels, you can look me up with the same name on Wattpad. This was really fun. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, and hopefully this won't be your last appearance. I'm glad you enjoyed it and glad you had fun. Thank you for being here. $5 from Brat to say, to the guy who said you can't medicate the demons away, you can't medicate diabetes away either. It's chronic, but medication still benefits diabetics. Thank you for the $5. Please continue to give me money. Stardust, please.
Okay, so I still have a problem with what Azzy is saying, right? This whole idea that people won't take medication because they feel like they're not themselves. That is also part of a stigma. Yes, there are some cases where people will feel like medication is it is making them feel a little bit different. There are cases where people will find medication has some side effects, but for the whole thing about zombified, oh, I feel like a zombie, that is part of a larger stigma that we should not be encouraging, we should not be putting out into the world. He also said another thing about how a lot of these drugs are experimental. No, they're fucking not. The drugs that they put people on for mental illness usually have years of clinical trials behind them. Thirdly, I know that everybody has this idea of institutionalization and what it used to be, right? But guess what? They're not lobotomizing people anymore. They're not they're not mental institutions are not what they used to be. You can look it up. I linked an article in the group chat for you guys if you want to take a look at what mental institutions are like today. Also, I linked an article that is basically it's a study. It's a small study, but it shows that in conclusion, long-term compulsory treatment appeared to have helped improve clinical and functional outcomes in a substantial proportion of previously severely dysfunctional, treatment-resistant, dual diagnosis patients who could then be discharged to a less restrictive and less supportive environment. And that was like 42%. And then there's a small portion where they had more oppositional behavior and needed a higher level care facility. But that there are studies that show that these long-term treatment centers are helpful for people, can put them on the right track, can discharge them when necessary, and put them on the road to success.
Well, thank you for being here, Stardust. Really appreciate you. And appreciate you, 𝕵𝖎𝖎 for the 300 bits. Glad you're here. Gang, we unfortunately didn't make the 5 gift subs, but that's okay, right? That's okay. Tomorrow, we are going to I will be moderating a one-on-one debate between Chris Speaks and a man by the name of 𝕍𝖎, who was on my show last week, right? And we're going to be arguing which is better for the modern man, the red pill or the blue pill. And we'll see how that goes. So tune in tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern for that. Gang, if you like the content, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. We're going to rate out. Is anyone here streaming?
I'm about to end.
Okay. Stardust, you're going to keep streaming after this? Or are you
I'll
done?
probably be on for a few more hours. So.
Okay, I'll send them over to you, Stardust. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for rating. I really appreciate it. Is there anybody else here? Because there's some smaller streamers on this panel.
That's what I asked.
I
Right?
mean, I'm gonna be on Prime's panel.
Are you streaming?
Broke up, he said.
Okay.
I guess not.
Fair enough. So no one
You guys
else...
should watch that tomorrow. Chris Speaks is hella based.
Yeah,
It'll
well,
be
we'll
really
see
good.
how he does against 𝕍𝖎. 𝕍𝖎's a pretty big YouTuber. We'll see
I don't know 𝕍𝖎, but Chris is a monster.
He has a different, like, what's his name on YouTube? It's 𝕵𝖎𝖎 or something. It's weird. It's like, but he's got like 40,000 subscribers, so we'll see how that goes. Gang, make sure you let Stardust know it is a hate raid, right? Ban those emotes, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Now that they're